My sister, who I'm no contact with, thinks she's moving into my new apartment and evicting my roommate. Great start. My sister and I have been at odds for a long time now. Basically, my brother, her and I are all adopted and not bio-related, and she was putting a lot of pressure on us to get in contact with our bio families, who are weirdos and not related to her at all, and we cut her off over it. It's a long story, I won't get into it here, but anyway, my sister is the type to go out of her way to hurt you if you don't do everything she says. So, what did she do to get back at me? Well, she slept with my at the time boyfriend, now ex of course, and then rubbed that in my face. Cool. Thanks so much, sissy. What a wonderful person. So here's the part that cracks me up, but also truly angers me. My brother and I have cut off my parents because they enable this little demon. And basically, my mum's birthday just passed, and my brother and I were nowhere to be found. And especially since Mother's Day is coming up, she is crashing out. Boohoo, don't care. Sorry, you still have your golden child daughter who hates you, so you should be fine. Anyway, my cousin was at the birthday they had for her and said this is what my sister was saying. So, I've been planning on getting an apartment with my 3 besties for a while now, and we basically just moved in. It's in the city where we grew up, and I'm so excited. The funny thing is, my sister is getting sick of living rent-free at my parents' in the suburbs, so she has decided that she is going to replace my one roommate and move in with me and have my parents pay her rent. Mind you, she and I have been on bad terms for months and we're almost no contact. The last time we spoke, she was showing me the pictures of her naked in my boyfriend's bed with him asleep next to her, and she was being nasty as frick about it. But now she thinks she's moving in with me? Girl, huh? That is, by the way, mental for your... I don't know if you call her your sister. I mean, you do call her your sister. She's showing you pictures of her naked in your boyfriend's bed. That is mad. Like, there's a lot of family drama that happens on this channel, right? That I read. You guys know this if you've been around for a while. But that is crazy. The best part is she has decided that the roommate she wants to replace shouldn't be there because he's a guy and it's going to be a girl's apartment. And then she dropped in some random homophobia just to top it off. So again, we don't speak at all. I hate her. She slept with my boyfriend and gave my insane bio family my contact info. Wow, she found your bio family and gave them your info. That is even crazier, arguably. I don't speak to my parents over her BS, but she's decided she's moving in with me because she wants to live in the city. And she's also decided my childhood best friend gets the boot because he's a guy and she doesn't want to live with a guy and blah, blah, blah. Lol. Okay, girl. Good luck with that. Yes, very good luck. And if you're listening or watching this, let me know how you get on. Comment down below. I mean, the thing you have to do is let everyone know. Security, the landlord, your other tenants. I don't know if you've bought or not, but yeah, let everyone know that there is a slight chance, and I really hope she doesn't do this, but there is definitely a chance that she is gonna, well, she'll definitely know where you live. She's managed to find your bio parents, so I think she's gonna find your address. And let's be realistic, given how crazy she is, she's going to be active. So let everyone know, be warned. Hopefully nothing crazy happens. I mean, this was posted 18 days ago. I fear for you, to be honest. What a crazy person to have in your family. We'll take those seats when you're done. I was at dinner with my dad the other night. It's a full restaurant that also has a back deck with additional seating and a full bar. We still had a glass of wine left and a little more than a quarter of the bottle was still there. The bartender had just put 2 desserts down for us, and before I even took a bite, I hear someone behind me say something to the effect of, "We'll take those seats when you guys are done." It was some middle-aged man, and my dad acknowledged him, said no problem, and turned back around. The guy proceeded to make sure we knew he wanted those chairs, quote, because people like to hover and snatch them, saying this while he's inches over my shoulder. My dad laughs and is telling him, no problem, we get it, and goes back to his wine. But the man stays and continues on about him and his wife and friend wanting a place to sit for their cocktail. At this point, I'm getting annoyed, just because I think it's rude to interrupt someone else's meal, especially multiple times. So, I turn around and say, we just got these desserts, and you can see we're not done with our own drinks yet. So I plan to be here for a little while longer still, but I'll let you know when we're done. I hope that was said with the sarcasm, I suppose, that I used there. It doesn't say it was, but I used it. You know what I mean? Like the slight passive aggressiveness that I used. I hope it was used with that tone. I turned back around pretty much immediately because I'm not making this a conversation, and he proceeds to tell us, take your time, no rush, we just want to get them. Well, I couldn't help myself, so I looked right at him and I said, I know what you want, and don't worry, we won't rush. Honestly, I was ready to go home. I'd been at work all day and dinner for over 2 hours at that point, but this just bothered me. Annoying as heck and audacious telling me not to rush as you're pushing the point that you're waiting for us to leave. I hope you stayed there until close. That'd be phenomenal. I mean, go to sleep at the table if you're knackered. Anything to spite this annoying entitled man. Well, another couple walked up on my dad's side. He made casual chat with them for a minute or two. Can I say, this is actually this is like horrible and this should not be allowed to happen. If you have a table at a restaurant, either you have an allotted time and then you get not kicked off, but sort of encouraged to move on. And the times are normally pretty reasonable, right? Like you have 2 hours and the waiters might say at the end of that 2 hours, oh, by the way, you've had 2 hours. Like, we need the table for another booking, etc. But if that's not the case and you're just sitting there, you can't have random punters coming up to you. Like that shouldn't be allowed, saying, by the way, we're having this table next. I mean, they shouldn't be doing it anyway, but the staff should be stopping that. Anyway, let's carry on. After I got my leftovers boxed up, my dad stood up, pushed his chair to the other couple and told them to have a nice dinner. I heard the first guy complaining about how the chair was his literal words, as I walked away. I'm hoping he had to stand for the rest of the night. That is mad. I do think that's a very weird policy. This is in a restaurant as well. Like, okay, I suppose it had a full bar, additional seating. I don't really 100% understand how this could have happened without like waiters getting involved, but it did. And you know, it's good that these people didn't get the table, but I would feel very uncomfortable having, you know, a couple of groups of people coming over eyeing my seats at a restaurant. That's the thing that's actually concerned me the most about this, which I know is a little bit weird, but that shouldn't be happening. Stinky Egg Lady on flight complained about my non-existent music. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if this fits here, but I'd say so. I just got home from a brutal night of traveling and had such an annoying experience, and all my friends were asleep, so I got a rant. That is when you turn to Reddit, late at night, almost like I'm doing right now. This is being recorded at 10 to 1 in the morning. I'm a night owl. I imagine actually a lot of you guys listening and watching to this right now are too. I mean, the sleep series does really well, so it's probably nighttime. Hope you're having a great night, by the way. Let's continue. I had a late night cross-country flight, so I took a magnesium pill and I put on my noise-cancelling headphones. So I have a loop of white noise that I listen to when I sleep in general, but especially on planes. So I've got my pillow and my eye mask, my headphones and my blanket, so I'm cool. Right? Something starts stinking. I peek out and basically there's a mother and daughter next to me eating some sort of stinky egg thing out of Tupperware. It was nasty and smelly, but I was like, fine, whatever, let's go to sleep. Now I've got to say this, a hard-boiled egg in England, I don't know if you have meal deals in America, like in grocery stores, where you pay £5 and you get a sandwich, a snack and a drink. But the hard-boiled egg in England, which this, by the way, this is crazy for me to say because I've tried it and it's not very nice and I quite like hard-boiled eggs, is the most popular snack in a meal deal in the country. That is mental, and I think it does smell as well. So I'm assuming, I mean, to be fair, it's in Tupperware, so it's probably their own thing, but I'm assuming it's something like that. Also, we have not taken off yet, by the way, and I get a sharp jab in my shoulder. It's a flight attendant. I'm like, yes? And she tells me that my music is too loud and I'm disrupting people. I'm so confused. I'm not even listening to music. And let me tell you, this woman was being very mean straight away. And I'm kind of like, I'm not listening to music, but she claims she can hear it blasting. And if I could go back in time, I'd have asked her what song, but I kind of just stared like a moron because I was so taken aback. I don't blame you. The woman next to me has been dead quiet, but starts whispering to the flight attendant. And the flight attendant tells me to either turn my music down or she's moving my seat. That's when I'm like, oh, Egg Lady probably lied on me to get a row to herself and her kid. Or maybe she has someone else she wants to join. I said I'll move to another window seat, but no, that wasn't available. So I was like, okay, no. This lady was kind of fighting with me about my music, claiming she could hear it when nothing was playing. Then another flight attendant basically shooed her off and apologized, and that was that. So the Stinky Egg family can stink up the whole plane, but God forbid I wear headphones. I've not even turned on my white noise yet. I'm grumpy as anything. I'm just baffled at the balls of some people. Also, stinky eggs should be banned from flights. Out of all the places you need to eat an egg salad, you choose an airplane? Why? Yeah, great point. I do think that on public transport in general, you should not be eating or drinking or just having anything that produces any sort of smell out of courtesy to other people around you, but especially on a flight. And this is an overnight flight as well. It's not like a short haul flight. It's awful. Imagine like trying to sleep and you can just smell eggs. Rancid. Yeah, that should not be allowed at all. I mean, to be fair, I actually think in my entire life, and I have been on quite a few flights, I can't remember anyone ever eating something that smelled particularly bad. So I do think in general people are good about it, but this would annoy me so much. Again, at the time of recording, 5 minutes to 1 on the 28th of May, I am going to be on a flight today's evening. So let's see if there's a smelly person, some smelly food on it. Maybe a smelly person as well, but I'll let you know. I pay rent, so I own this house. Backstory. My parents used to own a house on a big bit of land. When my older siblings went away for college, the house felt too big for our needs. So my parents decided to sell the house, but not all the land. They built a smaller house on the part of the land they didn't sell. A few years afterwards, we moved to a city 2 hours away and kept the house as a place to go during the summer. My parents decided to rent the house as it was well located and had a really nice view. Renting it meant that they could use the money towards the mortgage and taxes. Enter our Karen. Karen and her boyfriend rented the place so she could be closer to her work. From the start, my dad made it clear. The place was for rent, and my parents planned on living in that house after retiring. At that time, both of them planned to work for at least another 20 years. They would of course notify Karen in advance when they wanted to take back the house, so she'd have plenty of time to find a new place. In return, they asked that she notify them in advance should she wish to move out so they could find a new renter. The lease also stated that my parents would have some of their things in a locked storage in the basement as well as in a shed on the property, and that they would always call Karen before dropping by to get something out of the storage, which was in the basement and connected by the garage, so they wouldn't even disturb Karen. For a few years, Karen was an okay renter. She paid the rent through a check each month. Yeah, she smoked inside and didn't take care of the land, but my dad didn't make a fuss about it. The real trouble started after around 12 years. Every few months, Karen's checks would bounce back. My dad would call her to ask about it. Karen would profusely apologize and rectify the situation. Then it became every other month, until it was every month. Finally, my dad had enough and called her about the lease and the rent. During the call, Karen argued that since she had been paying rent for the past 12 years, the house was now hers. My dad was shocked since that came out of nowhere. He tried to explain to her that she was renting the place like they'd agreed since the beginning. Karen went on a female dog fit about how she'd paid so much over the years and she was the one living there and taking care of the place, which she wasn't at all, and therefore it should be hers. She threatened to take my dad to court. Now, where I live, there are many laws which protect the renter, and it can be a real female dog to deal with when you have a nasty renter. My dad hired a lawyer to make sure everything was in order. After a meeting with Karen, where the lawyer was present, she realized she didn't have much of a case, since all paperwork concerning the house was in my dad's name and the original lease clearly stated it was a rental. My dad offered to her to stop renting, should she wish, after the whole debacle, but she actually wanted to stay in the house. He made her sign a new lease, where it stated, again, that this was a rental, and that should she not pay or cause trouble again, my dad would give her the shortest possible notice of eviction allowed by the law. Karen is still renting the house after almost 20 years. My parents are not close to retiring yet. I do hope it won't turn into a trash show when they decide to take back the house. Okay, now before we get into the 5-year update on this one, OP firstly did leave this comment below the original post saying, the question, why did your dad let her sign a new lease, has come up a lot from you guys, the people of Reddit, asking down below. So this is what I will say. 1, I don't have the slightest clue why. As I was a kid, I was a lot younger when this happened, I wasn't really kept in the loop much. It was also not the reaction I'd expect my dad to have, since he is very respectful to others and expects the same in return. Secondly, I do know the legal actions he took when she threatened to take him to court did protect himself and many future problems that might arise. I do appreciate all the concerns and the advice, although I do think my dad had a good reason to keep her as a tenant from hell after everything that went down. Okay, very interesting last line here, and I don't really understand it. Surely your dad didn't have a good reason to keep her as a tenant. Like, I kind of get it. Like, maybe at the start it was fine, and, you know, money was coming in, and yeah, it was a little bit of effort eventually, but like, she was paying most of the time. But then surely by this point, when it's getting as ridiculous as this and you're having to chase her every single month, and then on top of that, you're getting her threatening you to go to the police or whatever about it and make it into a real issue. Surely at that point, it's worth the extra effort to say, okay, you're done, let's get another renter in. I know landlords don't like the turnover of having new renters, but when it's someone like this, that makes no sense to me at all. Surely you'd get her gone. I don't know. I'm not your dad, OP. Just makes the most sense to me. However, the beauty of your dad continuing to have her as a renter, as a tenant, is that we got this update 5 years later, posted just 3 days ago at the time of recording. Okay, so here we go. Here is the update. OP says this is an update of a post from 5 years ago. Some people asked in the comments what was going on, and there has been new developments in the last few months. So here is the timeline. Since the beginning, there was a mutual agreement between Karen and my parents that they would both give a 6-month notice before she moved out, or my parents would like to take back the house. So let's move forward to the last week of June 2024. My dad received a phone call from a representative of Karen. Due to her financial circumstances, she was giving a month's notice before moving out. My parents were surprised by the short notice, of course, but didn't actually really mind it, as they were looking forward to taking back the place. Skip forward to the last week of July. Karen was set to move out, but then asked for a week extension as she couldn't find anybody to help her move. My parents agreed. She was now set to move out by August the 3rd. Skip forward to August the 4th. With the car all loaded up, with essentials, dinnerware and cutlery, small furniture, we left for our first trip to the house. The plan was to look at the state of the place, clean up a little bit, and take measurements for the remodeling my parents are planning. As we get to the place, we notice a small sign in the driveway to advertise for a garage sale at the house. We figured she'd forgotten to take it down, but we were wrong. As we get to the house, we can see boxes and furniture through the windows. Cue the shocked Pikachu face as she answered the door. It turns out she hadn't moved out yet, and she meant to call my dad to let him know, but of course she never did. She clearly didn't expect us to drop by so soon after her supposed moving date. My parents were both extremely annoyed, but they gave her an additional week and expectations of payments for the week she overstayed. Your parents, by the way, are extremely lenient. I mean, I'm pretty sure other landlords would say, no, you're done. Like, just get out or I'm calling the police. You're now 2 weeks overdue. Pay us for those 2 weeks and GTFO. But no, your parents apparently are too nice for that. Let's move forward. Honestly, it's bordering on like genuinely being too nice to the detriment of them. Like, there's being nice and then there's kind of getting walked over. Let me know in the comments, by the way, guys, what you think about that one. But yeah, August the 18th now, let's move forward a couple of weeks. My parents received the confirmation that she left the week she was supposed to. They had a neighbor drop by to make sure her things were really gone, but we didn't have the time to make the trip until a week after. We found the place in a much better shape than we expected. Of course, it's not in perfect condition, as it clearly has the wear and tear of a place that's been lived in for years. It needs a good cleanup, some fresh paint in most of the rooms, and a lot of work on the land. There's also plans of remodeling a bit to make an additional room on the first floor, so my parents don't have to go up the stairs all the time. So, turning over a new leaf. This ends the whole chapter. My parents got the summer house back years before they expected, and although the renter was difficult until the end, she mostly went away without all the trouble we expected. My parents are happy to take back the place and are looking forward to all the projects they have for it. They've been almost every week to clean and sort through the things we had stored there. My dad did a fresh paint of coat in some of the rooms, and they're looking for furniture. My brother went once and started to clear up some of the trees to get back the awesome view we used to have from the kitchen. My dad bought an old lawn tractor to help with the yard work and is excited like a little boy with a new shiny toy. We'd like to get the place cleaned and ready to hopefully spend Christmas camping there, as we most likely won't have a lot of furniture yet. Okay, fair enough. Maybe I was wrong actually there. Maybe the best course of action was what your parents did. Just being lenient, trying to make as little fuss as possible, perhaps in the knowledge that if they were really aggressive and, told Karen, like, actually this is ridiculous, get out, that potentially could have caused a lot more drama than just doing what they did in the end and saying, you know what, fine, maybe we don't get paid for these couple of weeks, maybe she stays for a little bit longer, maybe it's more annoying in the short term, but long term it's better if she just goes. I don't know, I'm still sort of the belief that she should have been kicked out a long time ago. She seemed like a bad tenant. But yeah, what do you guys think in the comments down below? Do you think OP's parents were just way too lenient here, or ultimately they were able just to have sort of one tenant the whole duration of the time they were renting the house, which is always a good thing? They didn't have to do that much work, and overall it wasn't that annoying. I'm not sure. I think it would have been horrible and a lot of stress, but if they were able to manage it, which they seem to, then who am I to say that was a bad thing? Okay, now moving on to our next Entitled People story. Group admin removed me without warning, then reached out asking for a free trip. So this happened a few years ago during COVID. I don't remember which year, when I worked as a deckhand and lifeguard on a snorkel excursion boat. I'm a freediver and on occasion also spearfish, albeit rarely. A little before COVID, my friend, who is a photographer, added me to a dive group she's part of. I was excited as I didn't have many diving buddies and didn't like diving solo, so I thought I might make some new dive buds. My partner and I live with his parents, and his mother is super high risk for complications, so we were pretty strict about COVID precautions and social distancing. I decided to join one of the dive days with about 7 other people in the dive group. I figured it would be easy to social distance. It was my first time meeting these people, aside from my original friend. Before we even got in the water, I started to realize they might not be my kind of people. I tried to meet people, but most weren't interested in chatting with me. They made a circle to talk, and I ended up standing awkwardly on the outside, uninvolved, because they were almost shoulder to shoulder, and I needed to social distance. I tried to be involved in the topics, but it felt like cool story bro kind of thing, so I just kind of stopped trying. Well, after that dive, I decided I'd likely wait till COVID passed more to dive with them, unless it was fewer than 3 people, since none of them took any precautions. I still check in on the group a few times a week, in case something small was planned and I felt like joining, but most times it was larger groups or scheduling didn't align. Since I was reading the chats, I learned a bit more about this group, mainly that many in the group are vegan. They didn't like me asking if anyone would like to join a spearfishing session. A quarter to a half of them were anti-vax, that most were either photographers or influencers. I did have a few good friends in the group, but I'd met them prior to the group. I worked on the boat 3 days a week, but my captain wanted to hire another person to work the other 2 to 3 days a week. So I offered up the job in the dive group, since I knew mostly everyone could free dive the minimum 40 feet required for the job. Only one person was interested, but scheduling didn't work out. The admin of the group, we will call Maisie, ended up removing me from the group without warning. I didn't find out till I tried to find the chat and it was gone, so I asked her about it. She said she removed me because I wasn't participating in dives right now. I told the group I was only going to do 2 to 3 man dives till vaccines were available and or COVID was less of a concern. This was because most of the dives had been larger groups or scheduling issues, so yeah, I hadn't been participating much. She said she needed to make room for people to join the group that wanted to and that would actually participate. Ouch, but okay, fair. Sorry, I gotta interject here. That's not fair. Why is there a limit on a group chat? Like, that's not a thing. It doesn't make any sense. Let's carry on. I thought the fact that she didn't tell me when she did it was weird, but I just moved on since I still had my prior friends. Now, I never told them I also run the social media page for the boat company I work for. And a few days after getting booted from the group, I get a message to our company's social media from Maisie. Is she inquiring about the available position we need filled to help us get more business and survive COVID? Nope. She wants a free half-day excursion to the neighboring island in return for exposure, telling us how her followers will be booking our trip and she'll bring a boost of profits by promoting us. I can't say I was surprised. Disappointed? Yeah. I don't remember exactly what I wrote back to her, but this is the closest I can recollect. Hello, thanks for reaching out to our company. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, our capacity has been cut in half to adhere to social distancing requirements. This has led to our demand rising, since what we could previously accommodate in one excursion must now be split into 2 trips a day at max capacity restrictions. You promised that exposure will increase our bookings, but without a contract showing hard numbers and an agreement to reimburse us if projections fall short of the agreed amount, we cannot warrant a free half-day excursion for exposure over a paying guest. We're also short-staffed and only able to operate 3 days a week at this time, limiting our income even more under the already financial strain of COVID. Local businesses dealing with these setbacks is widely known about, and we find it in bad taste to request free excursions or products from small businesses under this well-known strain. We can offer you a resident discount, but that's all. We hope you decide to support small businesses in this time. However, we understand that COVID has put financial strain on all. We do have positions open to apply for if you've had trouble finding work and making ends meet in these hard times. She never responded, and I never talked to or saw her again. About 6 months to a year later, the COVID restrictions lightened a bit for travel, and our location was drowning in tourists. Our already high demand skyrocketed, and we were doing 3 to 4 trips a day, nearly back to back, because we were still short-staffed. I busted my butt, and I made bank. I was able to save up for a big purchase a few years faster than planned, and all I could think about was how if she'd taken up the job offer instead of asking for free stuff, they'd have a great job on the water and be making some great money. Well, that right there, in my opinion, ladies and gents, is the problem with influencers or people that call themselves influencers. Like, let's be honest, I don't think anyone that has any self-respect that is in sort of content creation or is sort of an Instagrammer or something like that calls themselves an influencer. I think they just use a different word. I think right now, like influencer, the term, has so many negative connotations because of people like this and people doing things like this that I would just never want to be sort of painted with that brush. I just call myself personally like a content creator or just media person because, you know, although in theory, yes, if you have a following, you can influence, and therefore I suppose you are an influencer. Like the term is just so disgusting because of people like this. And yeah, to ask for free stuff, I suppose is fine. For exposure, I'm not 100% anti it. You know, if someone does have a following, then it can actually be worth it. But you know, it depends on the individual, of course, and what they're actually offering. But to do it during COVID as well, when you know full well that everyone is struggling, and obviously a business that is run by, well, tourism, people physically being on the boat and doing stuff like that, like that obviously cannot run during COVID, is going to be struggling. Yeah, that's I agree with OP. That is in really poor taste. And the fact of the matter is, and what makes this great and potentially, yeah, good karma, is that you've made a load of money and she probably hasn't. I don't know. She might have done. It's just unlikely, let's be honest. But yeah, if she had just taken you up on the job offer and said, you know, actually, yeah, I could do some work through COVID, then she'd be doing unreal right now, and most likely she's not. I mean, the thing is, in general, and this is what, like, I don't think I've ever actually, that's not true. I have had some free stuff given to me before, but it's always as part of like a deal where they get something back, the company. I think the best thing to do is, if you are like an influencer and you want free stuff, which is fine, like you can get free stuff, have some sort of agreement in which like you will hit a certain number of affiliate links, or, you know, you will send a certain amount of traffic their way using your link. And if you don't hit that, then be prepared to sort of financially reimburse them for giving you the free stuff. I think that's fair. And if you back your audience to do that, and you back the fact that you are an influencer, then you should do that. Getting free stuff like this or just demanding free stuff, yeah, I don't love it. Now for our last, but by far not least, Entitled People story of this episode. If you guys have been missing me doing a Karen voice, or just, you know, changing my voice up a little bit for some certain characters in these stories, then you're going to love this. Crazy entitled couple tries to run our delivery van off the road, then demands free catering. This happened sometime last year, but due to it being an open incident, I held off on sharing it until now. In late winter / early spring of last year, I got a call in from the delivery driver that someone had brake checked them on the main road into town, then sped off. Luckily, it was after delivery was completed, so nothing delicate was on board. I take down the plate, vehicle info, all the standard stuff for an incident of road rage. But before I can finish up the call, the brake checkers actually called in to our main office. Before I could complete the standard spiel, they immediately cut me off, screaming, "Hello, you've reached XYZ. Your jerk driver tried to run us off the road." Now, I know our driver. They are the least aggressive, most careful driver I've ever seen. They regularly deliver precarious items like wedding cakes without so much as disturbing them. If anything, they're too cautious. They're not running people off the road. Excuse me, sir, but I don't think our delivery van would have tried to run you off the road intentionally. Were you perhaps traveling in the vehicle's blind spot? There are warning signs on the delivery van to avoid lingering in blind spots when the driver signals. This is about as far as I get trying to be diplomatic. Then the entitled woman gets involved. "Why are you defending this jerk? This is some minimum wage idiot that probably doesn't even belong in this country. Yeah, your driver tried to kill us, and you're making excuses? This is outrageous." "Sir, ma'am, please calm down. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of things." "Do you know who I am? I'll shut your whole operation down. You listen to me, you little R-word. You better be ready to give us some hefty compensation, or we'll take this to the police and we'll sue you. We have a party coming up, and if you'd agree to cater it for free, we might let this all go." I have no doubt the look on my face when I heard that out of the woman must have been one of the most exasperated faces I've ever made. At this point, I'm just pausing to try and process this bizarre demand. "Hey, stupid, did you even hear what my wife was saying? Do you speak proper English?" It's at this point I've had enough. I'd put the pieces together as soon as they complained about road rage. "Are you license plate ABDC 12345 gold 4-door crossover? Are you the jerk," insert racial slur, "driving that big stupid van?" "No, I'm not. But the driver called in you having brake checked him just before you called in. We just tried to stop the driver because he was a danger to everyone on the road." Well, we will see what the facts are once the vehicle's camera footage is reviewed. Our delivery vehicle is equipped with 360-degree recording. Just let me pull that up. BS. There's no such thing. Unluckily for him, there is. It's similar to the 360-degree Tesla cam. Unfortunately, you can't pull it up for situational awareness while moving over 20 kilometers per hour. Thanks whatever safety bean counter thought that needed to be locked out. I pull up the footage from the fleet management software, then proceed to see the gold car in question, not just travel in the blind spot, they were fully behind the vehicle, then sped up to try and cut it off when the driver turned on the signal to change lanes. "Sir, I can clearly see that your wife in the driver's seat sped up after the driver signaled intent to change lanes, entering the vehicle's blind spot. Then, instead of slowing down when the vehicle started to change lanes, you kept trying to push up until you were forced onto the shoulder." "No, that's not what—" "Don't interrupt. I can then clearly see you zip into the left lane, overtake the van, merge in front without signaling at an unsafe distance, then slam on your brakes. After reviewing this footage, I think it's a great idea to get the police involved." The woman then splutters and tries to come up with something to say, and the man then just says, "Hang up the phone, Karen." They disconnected the call, and I had a good laugh. Then I made an online police report. I'll bet their insurance premiums will never be the same again. In my opinion, right, it's just so stupid that these people didn't realize or didn't even think for 1 second that there's a pretty decent chance that this delivery van would have some form of camera, whether it's a dash cam, whether it's something that's more advanced. Like, it just feels like every sort of company van or car these days is likely to have some form of camera just to sort of protect itself in a situation like this. The fact that they're trying to just sort of con this company into getting free stuff is just very, very weird. I mean, even the fact that there could easily have just been a camera just on the road. I don't know where this took place, but I don't know. In England, for example, you're very likely to be on at least a camera, a traffic camera, if you're in like a popular place or like a, you know, not even a popular place, just like a city, for example. So who knows where this took place and whether that's different in the country that this took place in. If it's America, yeah, fair enough, it probably is different. But still, like, you just outright lying to try and get something for free. It's so dumb. And also, what they did was incredibly dangerous driving, and yeah, I'm sure that they will be charged for this. Entitled brother informed me that he would be taking my dog for 3 days without my permission. For those of you who aren't familiar with my stories, I am a 31-year-old woman, and I have a man-child entitled brother who is 26, who lives in the house I co-own with my mum. My mum has told him he has until May 31st to move out. This was originally posted 6 months ago in April of this year. I've been anxiously waiting for him to leave, doing my best to bide my time, but I finally reached the end of my rope, and for something that I'm not sure is the straw or the log that broke the camel's back. Last night, while I was in bed, my entitled bro informed me that he would be taking my dog, Spot, for 3 days on some fishing trip. I told him there's no way he could do that, but he said he wasn't asking, he was telling me. He said, he's my dog too, and that he's entitled to take him whenever he pleases. But here's the thing. 9 years ago, my entitled brother demanded a dog. I begged my mum not to get him one. He had one previously, but neglected it, and my mum ended up rehoming it, for which he never let her hear the end of it. But of course, she caved, and the same problem persisted. My entitled brother never cared for Spot. I ended up taking over his care. I paid for his vet bills, I fed him, I took him to get groomed, etc. Things came to a head when we had to move in with family members, and they said we were not allowed to bring a dog. My entitled brother didn't do anything to find Spot a new home. It was my problem. I found him a foster home, where I visited him every day after my college classes ended, and I was able to get him back 2 years later when we finally had a place to live again. Additionally, when I moved out of my house for a year, Spot went with me. Spot sleeps with me every night and has my name on all of his records. He's now 10 and has arthritis. He takes meds for his hips and his stomach and needs frequent bathroom breaks. Oh, and he hates the water. So when my little bro said he wasn't asking me, he was telling me, I knew that Spot would be miserable and possibly in pain that whole trip. He hadn't asked or even mentioned taking Spot before, so he's due for a refill on his pills tomorrow. Had I known, I would have gotten the refill sooner. I tried telling him that Spot needs a lot of care, and he said, yeah, so just give me everything he needs. And I was so irritated. You wait until the night before to tell me this. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I could have just taken him and let you panic, but I was being nice telling you ahead of time. That did it. I don't know why, but every alarm bell went off in my head. I grabbed my purse, put on my slippers, and told Spot to get in the car. I drove to my fiance's house and slept here last night. I was going to move into my fiance's house this summer, but now I'm asking myself, why the heck am I waiting? Everyone on Reddit keeps asking me why I stay home, and right now, I can't remember any of the reasons that I had before. I'm done. My mum is staying out of it right now, and I'm glad because I genuinely don't care what she has to say. I know she doesn't want me to go, but I just can't take my entitled brother's little power trips. He can do whatever he wants to the house, punching holes in the walls, kicking the appliances, calling the house a dump, but I draw the line at him taking my dog without my permission. That's my baby. And I'm not going to just stand by while he does whatever he wants with my pet when I explicitly told him no, something that he rarely hears. P.S. I occasionally have asked my brother to let Spot out for bathroom breaks since he doesn't work until the afternoon, and his response is that he's always too busy to do that. He's given me no reason to trust him to care for my dog for even a few hours, let alone 3 days on a fishing trip. And also, one final edit here on the first post. My brother does not know where my fiance lives, and even if he did, my fiance's 2 huge German shepherds would devour him. Okay, so that was the initial post. Now, the great thing about this is that just 6 days ago at the time of recording, and remember I said that that initial post was made 6 months ago, we got an update. However, before we get into this, first of all, I don't think I've covered this person's stories before, but I feel like I really need to go back and have a look at their profile and see what stories and what accounts they've told about their brother in the past. This clearly is not the first post they've made, and I reckon there's probably quite a lot there. So let me know in the comments down below if after this you want me to go back on this person's profile and have a look at what they've posted on Reddit before. But without further ado, I'm excited to get into the update. As I said, just posted a few days ago and see what happened with Spot. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into the update. First of all, OP says, I would like to thank everyone for all their support, well wishes, and for reaching out to check on me and Spot. It was such a relief to know that so many of you would have had the same instinctual reaction to my situation. Yeah, I didn't give my thoughts there because, to be honest, It was pretty obvious. Spot is clearly your dog and would be in serious danger if he was left with your entitled brother. I think we can all agree on that. So, after many months, I finally have an update for you all. Firstly, my entitled brother has finally moved out. However, he didn't move out until the end of July. He was supposed to move out by May 31st, but my mother allowed him to push the date back twice. I wasn't pleased, but since I moved out abruptly in April, I couldn't let myself get worked up over it. I was focusing on making a safe space for Spot and myself. Secondly, since my entitled brother has moved out, my mother has made the house her own, and I am proud to say it's finally everything she envisioned it to be. The house looks immaculate now that my entitled bro isn't crowding her space. Actually, this is something that I'm going to have to go back and look at on this person's account. Was that talk about your entitled brother punching the walls and just trashing the house legit? I thought at the time it might be hyperbole, but wow, maybe it is legit. Anyway, let's carry on. She is very proud of all of her home improvement projects and always has something new that she wants to show me when I visit. She seems so happy. The only thing that concerns me is how uncharacteristically friendly my entitled bro has been acting with her since he moved out. More on that later. Thirdly, Spot is doing so much better since we went to live with my fiance and his 2 German shepherds. I think my fiance's dogs understood that Spot is older and not quite as athletic as them, but that didn't stop him from trying to keep up with them. After moving in, Spot's favourite pastimes include running around the huge yard, laying in the sun, and eating the little tasty nuggets that the chickens leave in the yard. Yes, I mean chicken poop. 4. If you have read this far and are wondering what took me so long to update, I do apologise for the delay, but I have a good reason. My fiance and I bought our first home. We fell in love with a tiny little house in our ideal area and have been working on renovating it. I'm very pleased to announce that we moved in last month. And if that wasn't good enough news for you, here is the biggest announcement of all. We got married. After all the hard work we put into the house, we knew it was the perfect place for us to tie the knot. We invited his dad, his siblings, and my mum over, and we had a quick ceremony in our living room amongst unpacked boxes and mix-match furniture. It was perfect. But this wouldn't be an Entitled People post without some entitled bro stories. Here are some of the highlights, for lack of a better term, of what I've dealt with since my last post. I mean, surely go with lowlights there, but to be honest, I think for us, reading this and listening to this, they are going to be highlights. For the 3 to 4 weeks after I moved out, my entitled bro would not stop asking, "Where's Spot? Where's my dog?" over and over. Now, I just ignored him, but while I was silent, he said a lot of very revealing things, such as, "I bet you won't bring Spot back because you're afraid I'll do the same thing to you," meaning taking off with Spot. Now, I wanted to point out the whole reason I felt the need to remove Spot was because he threatened to take my dog without my permission, but I didn't waste my breath. At one point, he got so worked up that he said, "Fine, don't tell me where Spot is. I'll find out," which only solidified my confidence that I made the right choice. Secondly, a couple of months ago, he had information that I needed in order to help our aunt with a task. My aunt asked him to please send me the info so I could complete the task for her. Now, he said he would, but never sent me anything, despite how many times she reminded him. It got to the point where the deadline was getting close, so I had to call and text him multiple times. He refused to give me anything, saying I needed to apologize for being so rude because I had the audacity to ask him for the info. I decided to act fed up and told him, forget it, someone else can do it. I then asked my cousin Molly to text him, saying that she was the one to contact instead. He sent the info to her instantly, and then of course I had Molly just forward it on to me. The look on his face when he later found out I was the one who took care of everything for my aunt was priceless. He enjoys having things to hold over my head. The final thing I will mention is my entitled bro was a nightmare for my mother until the day he moved out. He went through waves of giving my mum the silent treatment, then angrily hounding her for ruining his life, to having personal pity parties and saying things like he was so depressed and he didn't want to live anymore. My mum got so fed up that by his moving out day, she had no pity for him anymore, just actually secondhand embarrassment. But then he did something very strange. He was literally in the middle of yelling at her and blaming her for all of his shortcomings when he suddenly broke down and cried, saying he was so sorry for what he put her through. All he wants is to be loved by his mum and sister, and asking, "What would you do if I killed myself?" My mum said she thought it was a miracle from God, and I tried to gently ask her if it wasn't more likely that it was just a manipulation tactic. She said she is choosing to believe that this is a sign that her son is finally changing for the better. I find it very hard to believe. So now he acts as if he was never the hexspawn that plagued our home for 8 years, and my mum is so happy because she thinks that now her son is reformed. I think it's more likely that he's just trying to stay in her good graces because he wants to use her as a safety net. My mum claims she would now never take him back in unless it was a true emergency, but I don't know about that. That is the only thing about my entitled brother that makes me uneasy to this day. Other than that, I have no interest in dealing with him and will not be including him in anything. He does not have my address, and my relatives know not to share it with him. Although I have had to deal with a lot of drama these past few months, I am so relieved that I left that tumultuous home life when I did. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have had a safe space for myself or Spot. I wouldn't finally have a home of my own with someone who loves me completely. And I wouldn't have married the sweetest, most supportive man I've ever met. I'm so grateful to be able to write this happy update on my couch in my home with my husband at my side and my sweet Spot laying his head in my lap. Thank you again for being here for me and for waiting so patiently for an update. I hope it was worth the wait. Thank you. Okay, so there we go. A fantastic ending to this one. I'm glad that everyone seems, well, you especially seem to be getting on well. Spot sounds really happy. You obviously are. And your husband, yeah, fantastic news. I do agree with you though. Like, there's no way that just in one sort of split second does somebody suddenly realize how horrible they've been for the past 8 years and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just don't feel loved by my mum and sister. Well, maybe there's a reason you don't feel loved by your mum and sister, and that's that 8 years of just pure entitlement. There's no way that somebody could just do that for 8 years and then suddenly be like, oh, sorry, I didn't actually realize what I was doing all this time. No, I don't believe it for 1 second. It's definitely a manipulation tactic. My friend is dying, Karen. I just came across this sub, and it seems like the perfect place to rant about an incident that still makes my blood boil to this day. Back in high school, my friend group included this guy who had a terminal illness. He was at the point where his doctors were shocked he was still alive. Aside from being skinny and a bit pale, he looked like any other average teenager. He had his good days and his bad days, but even on his good days, he would tire easily. He didn't talk much about his illness, and he tried to be normal like everyone else. For example, he would talk about the college he wanted to attend and what career he wanted. We respected that and never brought up his illness. He had a placard, so we would always park in handicapped spots. As you can imagine, we often got dirty looks when a bunch of seemingly healthy teenagers piled out of the car. Our friend ignored the looks, so we never said anything to these judgmental people. One weekend, we all decided to go to the amusement park. After an hour or so, he started getting tired, so we got him one of those loaner wheelchairs. Like the teenagers we were, we took turns doing stuff like pushing him really fast and doing wheelies, but we were careful not to bother anyone else. I remember him laughing his butt off. That is until a Karen shouted at us from like 30 feet away. You know you're keeping that wheelchair from someone who might actually need it, don't you? I looked at my friend and his smile instantly disappeared. I was done. Effing done. So I marched over to her knowing exactly what I was going to say after biting my tongue so many times. I didn't raise my voice so my friend wouldn't overhear what I said. I'm sorry, Mom, but I'm sure you'll be happy to know my friend has a terminal illness and his doctors say he could die any moment now. So someone else will be able to use the wheelchair very soon. She got all red in the face and said, well, how was I supposed to know that? I replied, you weren't, because it's none of your effing business. So, thank you for reminding my friend he's dying when he was having so much fun. I turned around and walked back to my friends. He made it another 2 years after that. Jay, I still miss you, bro. You know what? After reading this story, I'm actually going to have to sort of check myself a little bit as well. Because, I don't know. And be honest with me in the comments down below, guys, as well, right? Genuinely be honest. Surely, at some point in your life, you have seen teenagers messing about on a wheelchair and thought to yourself, oh, what are they doing? Like, they're taking a wheelchair away from someone who might need one. They're taking their mick. They're having fun. Yeah, but it's a wheelchair. It's for disabled people, etc. Like, I'm happy to admit, I hold my hands up, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, that I have done that before. I'm not sure that necessarily is a bad thing to have done, because I am 100% sure that I have seen teenagers that are all abled, doing this in the past with loaner wheelchairs, ones that you can borrow and take if you need, if you have a disability. So I don't 100%, I can't 100% look at this woman and say, oh my God, how could you do something like that? I would be lying if I did say that. Now that's on me. I'm happy to admit that's wrong of me, and I would never do that again after reading something like this. And now that I'm obviously a little bit older and wiser, I know that a lot of disabilities, in fact, you could argue the vast majority, are not physical disabilities. So yeah, I'm probably gonna get slated in the comments down below, but just be honest with me. Have you done the same thing? Come on, admit that you have. Some of you I know are angels watching this right now, but just don't abuse me too much. See where I'm coming from in the way that I kind of see where the Karen's coming from. I don't know. I still wouldn't shout at someone from 30 feet away though. That's the thing. It's one thing thinking that in my mind, thinking, oh, these kids, what are they doing? They shouldn't be using the wheelchair like this. But I would never actually say, you're keeping that wheelchair from someone who might actually need it, don't you? That is another level. That is what makes this Karen a Karen. I just can't lie to you and say I haven't thought those things before. My future mother-in-law called me stupid, and now I'm considering calling off the wedding. How do I approach the situation? This was originally posted on June the 29th, 2024. I am a 23-year-old woman, and I'm engaged to John, who is 24. We're together for 5 years. We want to get married in July 2025. I always thought that his family liked me because we get along well. He has 2 older brothers, who are 26 and 29, who are both married. Honestly, I was very excited to have them all as my in-laws. They were always kind to me. Some kind of important information. About a year ago, when I was scrolling on Instagram, I saw a profile that was kind of cringy, but in a cute way. It was an older woman's profile who shared inspirational quotes. I remember one particular post, and it was something along the lines of, only stupid people pretend to know everything. Don't pretend, just ask. Honestly, this quote changed me in a lot of ways. Before that, I was always worried that I might embarrass myself if I don't know something. And after reading that quote, I realized that if I always pretend that I know everything, then I'll miss out on actually getting to learn about things. So, I decided to change my habits and start admitting that sometimes I genuinely don't know. Someone is talking about the war in Kosovo? Okay, sure, but first let me ask some questions so I can really understand what we're talking about. And I ask a lot of questions sometimes. I sometimes even open the Notes app and write in some questions that I later want to find the answers to. These are my latest. How does the time work in a black hole? Why some snails have shells and others don't? What food is okay for ducks? How does the light bulb work? The old ones with gas inside them. And does everyone see colours the same? And how can we know that? Alright, sorry for the long introduction, but it was kind of necessary for understanding what kind of person I am. I know that sometimes I might come across as annoying. Now, onto the problem. His parents hosted a small barbecue last weekend only for the family. So it was his mum, who is 54, his dad, who is 59, his 2 brothers, and their wives, who are both 27 years old. I was the last person who showed up because I had to work late. I entered the house, and when I was walking towards the back of the house, into the backyard, I heard John's mum talking about me. To be honest, she wasn't talking about me, more like mocking me. I heard her say in a high-pitched voice, "How does the sun work? Where should I put the fork? Why does nobody like me? How do I wipe my butt?" I just stood there. I had this sinking feeling. I couldn't move, so I just stood there. And I heard them all laughing. One of the wives said, "I actually don't mind her always asking questions. I think it's cute." And it made me feel hopeful that they'll say something like, "Yeah, sure, we're just playing. We love that." But none of them did. Instead, the mum replied, "It's not cute. She's just stupid." After that, they laughed again. And I heard John laughing. My heart kind of broke in that moment because he didn't even say one positive thing. He didn't defend me. He just laughed. I quietly turned around and left the house. I texted John saying that I got sick and have to stay home. Now I'm wondering, how should I approach this situation? We live together, and I'm sleeping in the guest bedroom for now, and I'm using the excuse that I don't want him to get sick from being around me. But I can't ignore him forever, and I can't pretend to be sick anymore. It's been too long. I'm not sure how to proceed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'm considering talking to them about this, but I'm also worried that they won't be honest with me. I can't marry him if he really thinks I'm stupid, but I also can't marry into a family who thinks so little of me. But maybe it was a joke and I shouldn't take it so seriously. I'm so torn apart, and every day I convince myself a bit more that it's okay, and sometimes we should all laugh about ourselves. Now I feel like I'm going crazy. I'd really appreciate some advice. Okay, before we get into my personal thoughts on this one, and then of course on to the first update. Firstly, OP has left some comments down below, a little edit, addressing some people that have said that they really don't like people like OP. She says, "There are many comments saying that they cannot stand people like me. I agree that sometimes I can be a bit too much with the questions, but with that being said, I still think I'm within reason. I don't do it around people I just met. I rarely do it at parties or other gatherings. I usually do it with people who are close to me, who I think won't judge me, or with people who specifically have knowledge about something and are willing to share it. If I'm a part of a conversation, I'm not rude and I'm not interrupting, I usually just ask 1 or 2 questions. If a discussion is about the climate change, I'm not asking about monkeys, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm also not a complete idiot. I don't ask questions which generally would be considered dumb to other people. Those I just write in the notes and check answers later in the internet. I'm capable of reading, so I make good use of it. But after all, I still do ask questions a lot." Okay, first of all, I've got to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions at all. And I ask myself this: who would I rather be in a conversation with? Somebody that's asking maybe a few too many questions, but someone that's asking questions and is, curious about the conversation, admitting they don't know everything in the world, just like every other person ever, or someone who acts like they know everything. And to be honest, sometimes I do catch myself doing this and I'm like, don't do this. It's not good. Someone that is just a bit too stubborn and doesn't like to admit that they don't know something, and instead of asking, isn't really brave enough to do so and just acts as if they know it instead. I would rather be with someone that says, you know what, yeah, that's actually interesting. I didn't know or don't know anything about that. Tell me. Surely that's better. Now, secondly, when we're coming on to OP's family-in-law to be, and particularly your husband to be, that's just not good at all. Even if it is a joke, firstly, you shouldn't be joking relatively maliciously, I'd argue, behind someone's back when they're going to be marrying into your family. And secondly, for your husband not to even give any sort of positive comment at all and just laugh is mental. I completely agree with you. If anything, I actually think it's worse than you're saying. But yeah, that is it for the initial post. Guys, get your comments down below. What do you think right now? 3 days later, though, we got this update. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to people who reached out to answer my questions about black holes, snails, ducks, light bulbs, and other stuff. I'd love to have you as my friends. For the other people who said I should just shut up, I don't really care if you find me annoying or hard to be around. I'm okay with that. I don't exist to please everyone. I'm just here for a good time, have my own interests, and learn. I didn't expect my post to gain so much attention, but I'm so grateful for the advice. Most of you told me to break up with him, and at the very least confront him, so that's what I decided to do. You gave me a push and the confidence to do it. But before I did that, I texted the wife of John's brother, the one who said she liked me asking questions. I asked if we could meet up for coffee. She said, sure. We met, and I didn't see the point in pretending to her that I didn't hear their conversation. So, after some small talk, I just said, I heard you all talking about me during the barbecue. She immediately got sad and said she feels embarrassed. She explained that it wasn't a joke. It wasn't out of context. It was just mean and hurtful. She said she's sorry for not defending me more, but I said that it's okay and I understand. I told her that I don't blame her for anything and just wanted to make sure that I understand the situation and see it for what it really was. And it really was laughing about me behind my back. Just bullying. At this point, I just had to confront John. In my last post, so many comments were saying that he'll probably try gaslighting me. And you were right. We were having dinner together for the first time since the barbecue happened, because before I tried my best to avoid him. Yeah, I know that's not very mature of me, but other than you guys, I don't really have a strong support system. My family and best friends are hundreds of kilometers away. I only have 2 good friends here. I was so stressed, I thought I'm gonna pass out. My legs were shaking and I was terrified because I knew deep down that this is the moment where my 5-year relationship goes down the drain. I looked him in the eyes and I asked, how does the sun work? He looked confused, so I followed with, where should I put my fork? Why does nobody like me? At this point, realization hit him and he started nervously laughing. I said I was there, and I heard them. After the initial shock passed, he got mad. He said it's rude to eavesdrop. I said it's rude to bully people. He tried telling me that it was just a joke, that I shouldn't be so uptight, that it really was funny. I said that I didn't find it funny, and I went to the guest to calm down. He started panicking. He was asking me to please talk to him. He was much more apologetic and said that he will be 100% honest with me. I asked if his mother made similar comments before the barbecue. He said yes. I asked him if he ever defended me. He said he tries to, but I don't know if I believe him. He told me he loves me and respects me. I don't know if I believe that either. I said that I love him too, but I need a break. He's all I've ever known. He was my first and only partner. Remember guys, OP is 23. I have no outside perspective of this. I've got no experience. I need a moment to think. I'll be going to my friend's house for a while to think everything through. The apartment has his name on the lease anyway. After I gathered some of my things and left, he kept texting me non-stop. He tried calling, but I didn't respond. I was very hurt because he tried to belittle my feelings, and only later, when he realized that I might break up with him, did he start apologizing. The next day, I decided to give him another chance to explain himself, and I came back to the apartment. He seemed very sad and tired. He said that he told his mother that I overheard them. I said, I don't care. It's his time to step up and show me that he cares. I'm not interested in an apology from his mother. I'm already done with her. I can't put up with this behavior and mocking me like we're in primary school. I saw a comment saying that probably her ego is hurting, and I think that's true. She never got the chance or never had the desire to have an education. She's a very good homemaker, but outside of that, she doesn't have many interests of her own. If I'm asking her about making tomato soup, she'll talk for 30 minutes, lecturing me about adding enough sugar, but not too much. She'll lecture anyone who is willing to listen. But anytime someone is talking about something she's not familiar with, she gets defensive and tries to imply that nobody cares about that. And if it's not relevant to her, it shouldn't be discussed. And again, I go back to my previous point, guys. Who would you rather be in a conversation with? OP, who's happy to learn and is asking you questions, or OP's, well, let's see what happens with her husband-to-be, his mum, who just doesn't want to talk to you about anything that she doesn't know about. Once again, he tried telling me that I should relax because it was only a joke, and at this point, I'd had enough. I took off my ring and told him that his behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. I told him, what a line that is, by the way. His behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. Hold that. I told him that I wish him and his family the best and to look in the mirror to check if they really are as superior as they think they are. I said I'm going to be back with my friends soon to pick up the rest of my stuff and to not contact me again unless it's about moving my things out. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you all for the advice. Without you, I wouldn't have the confidence to leave this man. I know I deserve better. I can't be with someone who can't stand up for me, and I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable around his family. So I'm done with the relationship. I hope they'll treat his next girlfriend better. Thank you again, Reddit, for the advice. Now, before we get into the final update, posted 3 months after the original, first of all, here are some comments. Somebody said, keep on being curious, not judgmental, which I completely agree with. Now, that is actually a reference, as I'm sure a lot of you know, to Ted Lasso. Same, says OP. I absolutely love that show. I watched it with my ex, and it's funny that he didn't like Ted and thought that his character was not relatable and silly. To be honest, we all should have Ted's strength and positivity sometimes. Yeah, I kind of get that. At times, I would say that Ted could come across as perhaps a little bit overbearing and just annoying because he was so positive. But ultimately, you want somebody like that around you, right? Someone that's going to pick you up when you're down, someone that's always going to see the good side of life. So yeah, I agree with that. Somebody else said, OP, your ex-mother-in-law can still go and get an education, by the way. Many have, and there's still time. That's not an excuse for what she did, and her saying that and acting like that shows how uneducated she is. OP says, I think so too. I believe it's never too late to start learning something new and continue education. In my uni, there was an old lady in her 70s who recently graduated, and everyone was just so proud of her. In my country, university is free, so the barrier to entry isn't as bad as in the US, for example. Okay, so pretty much OP is saying, there's no excuse. Go and learn, you old bint. I'm not sure you can say that, but let's move into the update. So as I said, this was posted on the 28th of September, almost 3 months after the original. It's been some time since I posted the last time, So I thought I'm going to give you guys a small update because some people are still messaging me. I appreciate all the kind words. So I've got my own apartment now. I lived with my friend for a while and she was an amazing support for me after the breakup, but now I have my own place closer to my university and work. It turns out my ex-fiance didn't tell his family that we broke up. I blocked them all except for the ex himself because we needed to keep in touch in order to get my stuff from the apartment that we shared, and my nice sister-in-law. And a week after the breakup, she texted me and asked when I'll come to the parents' house because everyone wants to apologize. I called her and said that we're no longer together and I don't really want their apology. Now she seemed shocked because my ex was telling them that we're fine, she just needs some time. She told me that the family is still fighting over this whole ordeal and that the brothers are giving my ex a hard time about the situation. I told her nicely that I don't really want any updates. I like her, but I cannot put my energy towards following their every move. She told me she understands. I don't know what happened after that with them. I'm happy. I went on a date with a cute guy I met in a cafe, but I'm taking everything slow and I don't want to rush any relationship. I'm not ready because just 3 months ago I was planning a wedding and right now I'm single and focusing on studying and work. When I graduate, I want to adopt a kitten and that is my only goal in terms of any big commitment right now. I also enrolled in CS50 by Harvard X and I recommend you all to try and learn something new today. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask and I'll try to answer in the comments. And boy, some people did have some questions. First of all, somebody said, update us on the kitten, please. I will for sure, says OP. I'm so excited. I wanted to get a cat for so long, but my ex was against it. He didn't like them. He was a dog person. I'm waiting till I graduate because I want to have more free time to actually take care of it. Somebody else asked, may I ask if you already went and picked your stuff up from his place and blocked him for good? I hope so for you to end the chapter more easily. OP says, yeah, I did that after a week and a half. I was completely done picking up my stuff. I tried not to be petty and take my silverware, for example, and not give him a reason to get mad. I didn't want to come alone, so I only went when my friend had the time to help me. He did though get mad when I took my air fryer. He loved it more than anything. I blocked him after I took everything that was mine. And then a comment on her ex's family. I think even though the brothers still think what the family said during the barbecue was funny, they're giving my ex a hard time because he let a good one go or something like that. They don't think they were in the wrong, but they're making fun of him for not standing up for me, and they're laughing at the fact that I broke up with him and he didn't even have the balls to tell them. One of them said that if someone called his wife stupid, he would defend her even if she would have done something dumb. Okay, sorry, there's a lot to unpack there, and I disagree with a lot of the stuff that these people are saying. Firstly, you're laughing at somebody else's wife or wife-to-be, and the fact that her husband-to-be hasn't defended her, yet you're saying that you would defend your wife if somebody else was calling her stupid. So how about just don't call anyone stupid in the first place? That's very, very hypocritical. Secondly, they just don't seem like very good people. Anyway, here is the final comment. Somebody said, it actually seems like you've moved on very easily. From love to engaged and then blocked within a few weeks. Yeah, the love faded really fast. I didn't expect it. The attachment to him is still there, but I very quickly stopped feeling love for him when I fully realized that he sees me as stupid and at the very least, not on his level. So there we go. That is the end of that one. And yeah, all in all, I would say that despite the fact that it was a pretty tough story at times to read, and I feel bad for you, OP, that your husband-to-be's family was just laughing at you behind your back, at least you found out right now. And I think the last point is very, very important, right? You seem to have moved on pretty quickly, which I think shows that ultimately you know now that he wasn't the right man for you in your life. Like, it's not as if you're groveling over him thinking, oh, why did he have to do this behind my back? Why are his family so horrible? No, you've moved on because you've realized that this wasn't going to be the right thing for you anyway. And yeah, of course, the attachment is still there, and I'm sure there is still a lot of love there. But yeah, the fact that you're already going on another date 3 months later when you've been with him for 5 years and we're engaged, it's a pretty good sign, to be fair, as far as a good sign can be when you've just broken up with your fiance. Entitled college roommates were mad I didn't cook for them, and they wanted me to pay for the ingredients. I refused, and they threw my stuff in the trash. I debated telling this last story after the whole saga with my mother-in-law and ex-wife, but I mentioned it before so many times that I may as well tell it. But it will probably be my last post here. I know it seems I dealt with a lot of terrible people in my life. I suppose I was just a magnet for it. My terrible mother, my terrible ex-wife, my terrible mother-in-law passed away before becoming my ex-mother-in-law, my bad co-worker that gave out my phone number to my mother, and lastly, some bad roommates from my college days. But beyond all of that, I haven't really dealt with much anyone else of note. Guys, in case you're wondering, this Redditor is someone whose stories I've read out quite a few times over the course of my channel. If you've been around for a while, you'll probably get one of the references they've just made there to one of the stories I've narrated. But this is a brand new one. Let's get into it. OP says, I've got good friends, a good job, and I'm physically active. But there were times I was just drawing in narcissists. Hopefully no more. Back in college, I had to deal with 3 bad roommate guys for 6 months. It was community college, so no dorm. Just a rundown apartment that looked right out of the 80s. I was balancing school and part-time work, so didn't have a lot of money. The funny thing is, I was literally the only one there who knew anything about cooking, much less did dishes. I wasn't one of those hardcore couponers, and there was really only 2 good stores in walking/biking distance. One a typical supermarket, the other a small discount food store. That's where I went the most. I was also no stranger to the local thrift store. My roommates mostly just ate junk food or whatever else they could grab that was already made. So, for obvious reasons, I couldn't keep leftovers. We also had fights about them not doing their share of the cleaning, but that was resolved later as well. 2 of these guys said they were friends before college, and the 3rd roommate fit right in with them for a while. The drama over the food first started when I made myself an egg sandwich for breakfast. 2 eggs over easy or medium, with your choice of cheese, bread, and mayo. It's actually pretty good, and a solid breakfast. One of my roommates saw me eating it and asked for one too. I apologetically said no because I was on a tight food budget and the frying pan was already in the sink. He rolled his eyes at me and groaned. I told him they were easy to make them himself if he bought the ingredients, but he balked at the notion. Another day, I made mashed soft-boiled eggs for breakfast. That attracted more attention. It's eggs boiled just enough to where the whites are cooked, but the yolk is still liquid. You then peel the shell off and mash the eggs in a bowl with a fork. It can be easy to mess up, and I only really succeeded half the time, but it's great with just basic seasoning and sometimes hot sauce. I haven't made it in a while, but I like to eat it on toast and sometimes over rice. I also made egg salad from time to time. Eggs were cheap and basically $1 a carton at the discount store. I'm also not a big fan of cereal as I had to eat it a lot growing up, and I prefer a warm breakfast without a lot of sugar. No matter how much I told my roommates they could cook their own food if they let me show them how, they just kept complaining that I made food that they weren't allowed to eat. Even though they wanted to eat good food at home, they were completely unwilling to put in any effort. Compared to these guys, I was the only broke person there. They all had the latest gaming consoles and new laptops. One of them even had a car. I had an old N64 and CRT TV that were pity gifts from friends years prior, a GameCube that I'd splurged on, and a used laptop I got secondhand. My roommates were near constantly gaming, watching YouTube, and being general couch potatoes when not in class. Hang on a second here, OP. What's wrong with watching YouTube? That's what I did, and still do to be fair, for many hours a day. Anyway, let's carry on. Sorry, a little bit sidetracked there. I think they thought I'd be a pushover at first, but I'm the kind of guy that seems chill till you push me one step too far. And they did this by stealing my game systems and my food. Here's what happened. One evening, I made something good for my dinner. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it might have been tilapia fillets. I ate those a lot. I even made them into spicy fish burgers. My roommates all ganged up on me over how their dinners always sucked unless they ate out. I mean, maybe just cook something nice then? Sorry to interject again, but just pull your finger out. If you want some nice food, make it. No one's going to make it for you. You've moved out of home now. It's insane. Anyway, microwave food all around for them on many nights. And they wanted me to finally make something nice for everybody. I told my roommates that, okay, if they each kicked in $5, I'd make us all a nice spaghetti dinner the next day. They agreed. My biggest mistake was not collecting the money from them in advance. So you're just asking for $5 from them to make a lovely meal. You know, they don't have to put any effort in and they just get to enjoy it. But okay, I see where this is probably going to go. I went out and got some ground beef, a jar of sauce, a loaf of garlic bread, the noodles, and canned green beans for a side. I whipped up a great dinner. But when I wanted the money from each of them, they laughed at me and refused. They played what they did off as a joke. When I didn't accept that answer, they told me they were sick of me flaunting my cooking around them and never sharing it. I gave them all the finger and told them I'd never cook for them again. And I stuck to that. They actually tried several more times. Oh my goodness, the audacity. And I always refused. They even offered to pay me again, but still refused to pay me for the first time. So I'm sure they would have just pulled the same stunt again. Money or no money, I had my pride. And I meant it when I said I'd never cook for them again. They started acting like kids whose parents wouldn't feed them around me, and were pretty angry when I called them out on it. I wasn't obligated to be their caretaker. I didn't know what kind of homes these guys came from, but they certainly weren't used to not getting their way. Yes, exactly. I mean, we all know. I can picture these guys right now. I can picture myself even having a conversation with them. I know what they sound like. I know what they'd say. I know they'd just be like the biggest golden children ever. So stuck up. So spoiled as kids. It's just so obvious. Stop flaunting your cooking around us. It's unfair. It's the most insane thing I've ever heard. One day, I came home from work and found all my food missing from the fridge and cupboards, and none of my roommates were home. I was furious, and I couldn't even confront them, so I just tried to go and play video games to unwind. But my consoles were missing. I lost my mind. I went to see an acquainted neighbor living in one of the apartments down the hall, and I asked advice from him because he was the one who sold me the GameCube. He had an evil idea and said that he'd use his digital camera to record my roommates when I confronted them, if I wanted, but only if I paid him $20. I didn't really have a choice but to agree. When my roommates finally came back, they were all smug, until they realized their gaming consoles and laptops were all missing. They flipped out, threatening to kick my butt, but I held my ground and told them I wanted my stuff back, or I'd never tell them where their stuff was. It turns out they bagged up all of my food and threw it in the dumpster outside a few hours earlier. Then they hid my game system and TV somewhere in the building before taking off to a party. I asked them why they did that, and they claimed it was because they'd been drinking all day since it was a weekend, then tried to say it was just a stupid drunken joke, while also telling me that I'd gone too far. I laughed and said they were enormous hypocrites and a-holes to say I went too far after what they did. I just got even. One of them looked like he was ready to hit me, and I drew all their attention to the nearby window. That's when they all saw our neighbor outside the window recording everything with his digital camera. He gave me an okay and took off down the fire escape before my roommates could do anything. I told them that guy just recorded their entire admission. That was bullying, theft, and underage drinking since we were all under 21 at the time. I told them I'd take that recording to the dean if they didn't make things right, because they wouldn't like having that stuff as part of their records. It was well known a couple of girls had been ousted from the college for roommate bullying the previous year, and of course drinking while underage is also a huge no-no. They all looked like the colour had drained from their faces. I told them I wanted my stuff back now and the cost of my food reimbursed. It was their move. They all took off outside as fast as they could. They came back with my game systems and games in a garbage bag, and even retrieved my food from the dumpster and expected me to just take it. But I refused to touch the food because it had been in the garbage for hours and I'd only accept cash. Additionally, they dropped my TV and it was broken, so I wanted that replaced too. They all hemmed and hawed, but finally asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted a new TV and $60 cash from each of them. They asked why that specific number. I said $50 each to replace my food they tossed, $5 each for the spaghetti dinner that they'd reneged on paying for, and then what remained for having to pay a guy to wait for 2 hours outside our window in the cold to record them. They all got their wallets out and begrudgingly gave me the money. They'd all previously bragged about how they had parents and scholarships footing their bills, so they easily had the cash. After getting paid, I told them where to find their stuff I'd hidden, and they stopped bothering me. One of them had a small flat screen TV in his stuff, and just gave it to me to replace what they broke. And then we called things even. But after that, they avoided speaking to me if at all possible. Though eventually they all started getting on each other's nerves since I'd ruined their fun. They also never brought alcohol into the apartment again for fear that I'd snitch. And they did try to harass the guy I'd paid to record them. He said he'd take the recording to the dean himself if they bothered him again. So they were SOL to do anything about the situation. When the lease renewal came, 2 of the roommates opted to move out of the building because they and the third guy now hated each other. Yeah, they all hated me, but the 2 that left were especially the worst. But they liked each other just fine. Didn't bother to keep tabs on them once they were out, and the few classes we had together, they kept away from me in. And the one roommate that stayed actually made some improvement as a person, and made sure to tell the new guys who moved in not to mess with me at all. One of them was actually pretty cool though, and he liked cooking simple home meals like I did. He also liked Nintendo and bikes. He became my best friend and still is to this day. We even still play Mario Kart together when we can, and took up cycling together again once I separated from my ex-wife. He's been my greatest support ever, more so than any family I've ever had. Also, for those wondering where I'd hidden my roommate's stuff, I hid them all in their own suitcases that were already put away in the closet, which would have been one of the last places they'd have looked. They were all so annoyed it was all right there the whole time. Okay, there we go. That is the end of that one. Wow, what a story. And you know, I just feel bad for this Redditor, because you guys will know if you've seen any of my other episodes that have stories in from this user. They've been through the mill, I think, to say the least, in their life. And yeah, you know, they've finally gotten away from their parents, their horrible family, get to college, and we just met with horrible roommates like this. It can't get much worse. I mean, this is literally the definition of entitled people. Just like, I can't imagine doing this at all. It's just so crazy. Obviously, I went to university. I was in a dorm of my own, I suppose. People cooked different stuff. Some people cooked together. Some people cooked separately. Whatever. It was all chill. One thing that nobody ever did was say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you're cooking a lovely meal and not making any for me for free. What are you doing?" Like, it just didn't happen. I don't understand how somebody can genuinely think like that. That's insane. And the funniest bit about all of this is saying it's actually unfair that you're doing this in front of me. It's just not right that you're doing this. I'm getting jealous to the extent that you need to stop doing this. It's very weird. Like, if you care that much, just learn to cook and just make some meals yourself. But I don't particularly love cooking. In fact, I would actually say that I don't dislike it. It's all right. I don't know, I can't be bothered a lot of the time. But if somebody was making a lovely meal in front of me, I wouldn't tell them to stop because I can't be bothered to make nice food. That's insane. It really is. And then on top of that, OP offers them to like, you know, an olive branch. Okay, I get it, guys. You don't like the fact that I'm good at cooking and you can't be bothered. But give me the money for the ingredients. I'll make us a nice meal. We can enjoy it together. You don't have to do anything. Just literally pass me a note of paper and you'll have a meal in front of you. You guys don't care about money anyway. You've said it. You've got rich families, whatever. And it's clear they have rich families that haven't brought them up that well. Let's be realistic here. But even then, no, they just take the mick out of you. Disgraceful people. And to be honest, I kind of wish that the dean had seen this stuff, because they've had no real repercussions from this, have they? Yeah, they've lost a bit of money, $60. But, you know, what is that really to them? That's not going to make much difference in their lives, is it? Whereas getting kicked out because of bullying your roommate would have done. They're not going to change as people, I don't think, because of this. He got arrested over a receipt. In my 20s, I worked for a very popular theme park in Florida. I worked quick service food at a resort one year. One day, I was placed in my favorite position, pizza back. Basically, I was responsible for making pizza, baked ziti, and breadsticks. The resort guests could call in special pizza orders, and guests could order pizza at the counter as well. Don't ask me why, but I rocked at this position. I was very quick and consistent, so I was often placed back there to my delight, as there was air conditioning and a walk-in fridge. Anyone who's done kitchen work knows how most professional kitchens feel as though they're bordering on hell's territory. I'm in the back keeping a steady pace when a tall man with light brown hair and a beer gut starts arguing with my co-worker Kira up front at Pizza Fronts. The man claims he'd been waiting for his pizza for 40 minutes. When a guest orders a pizza, they're given a copy of the order and a wireless pager that will go off when their pizza is ready. Since the pizza is the most expensive item on the menu, and there have been people attempting to claim multiple, it became policy to have the guest pay for the pizza first. Once the pager went off, bring it back with the receipt so we can then mark it and they receive their pizza. The receipt also has a time on it. Now Kira asks to see the man's receipt to check the time. He gets angry and yells at her. He screams that he wants his dang pizza. Kira became flustered and comes back there asking me where his pizza was. I told her that nobody waits 40 minutes when I'm back there and that his pizza would be ready when it's ready. She refused to go back up there because he was so rude, so I went instead. I asked him politely for his receipt as it had a timestamp. "Sir," I say, "I apologise for the wait. May I see your receipt, please?" "No," Why do I need to show my receipts? Sir, it's our policy to ask every guest for a receipt before they receive their pizza. That's bull. First, that woman asks, now you? Are you accusing me of stealing a frickin' pizza? No, sir. It's our policy. Screw your policy. Give me my dang pizza. Kira then calls our small and adorable manager. I'll call her Rose. Rose comes up to the front and politely asks the man what's wrong. I've waited almost an hour for my dang pizza, and those two female dogs have enough nerve to ask for a dang receipt. Sir, please don't use harsh language towards our workers. Asking for a receipt is policy. I can use whatever language I want to. By this time, it's clear the man is possessed or drunk, so I call another manager. This manager, I'll call Antonio, comes out and joins Rose to figure out the situation. The man continues to cuss us out. He says that Kira and me are female dogs and he plans to get us fired. He also plans to get Rose and Antonio fired as well. Apparently, we're accusing him of stealing by asking for a receipt. He cussed more vulgarly and loudly. People are covering their children's ears or leaving at this point. The front desk staff looked dazed. Two guys that were managers of the gift shop called security. Security shows up and takes over. Sir, are you a guest of this resort? Yeah, what about it? Well, we need to verify your identity. Can you show us your ID or room card, please? Good lord, it starts all over again. The man refuses and cusses the security out. He calls them fake cops and says they can't actually do anything to him. He's going to get all of us fired. The fake cops threaten to call Orange County Police if he doesn't comply. So he says, call Orange County. And guess what? They did. The man is then arrested in the middle of the food court. Once the cops show up, he miraculously calms down and shows his room ID. His wife and 8-year-old son were at the pool. A worker had to go and get her. She was a blonde woman and pretty. She walked in, looked at him, and walked back outside. She had an expression that said, I'm done. His face dropped as they walked him out in handcuffs. Due to policy, the whole family had to leave that day with no refund, and he was banned for life. They'd come there for their son's 8th birthday. Throughout all of this, it was kind of funny. Until that last line. That has just made it really quite sad. Okay, there we go for our first story. Now, interestingly, OP actually left a little edit at the end saying, for anyone wondering, the man, as we probably could have guessed, actually had a receipt crumpled in his pocket and he'd waited 10 minutes. My guess is that he was upset about something else and was just taking it out on the world. Well, that is normally what happens, to be fair. When someone really is unbelievably angry, as in for no real reason, and just really stressed and just horrible, it normally is a reflection of what's going on in their own life. But yeah, this is definitely not the first time this guy's done this based off his wife's response, and it just seems like a horrible bloke in general. As I said though, like, that last line is the sad line. I feel bad for his son. Like, his birthday's just been ruined because of his entitled dad. Oh well, 10 more years and then he can disown him, I suppose. I actually don't know at what age you can disown your parents, but hey, he's gonna have to wait a while. Now for our next entitled people story. Entitled couples meltdown equals my luxury upgrade. Back in 2008, my partner and I took a gay cruise through South America. Picture this: 3 days in Rio during Carnival, a week of debauchery on the high seas, and wrapping up in fabulous Buenos Aires. Pure bliss. Well, mostly. Back then, the concept of a boatload of homos docking in port was breaking news in some places. Everyone was friendly, but I still felt like one misstep by any of us would be a permanent black mark on gays everywhere. The stakes were high. Now, my partner and I weren't exactly rolling in it. Inside cabin poor, but we splurged on a few nights at a nice hotel after the cruise. It turns out, so did half the queens on that ship. By 10 AM, there was a line snaking out the lobby doors, all of us hungover and politely waiting for our turn to drop bags and wander off until check-in. Enter them. A couple behind us decided they were simply too important to wait. One of them had some VIP ultra diamond titanium whatever status with the hotel, which supposedly came with early check-in. The clerk, who had the patience of a saint, explained that early check-in was based on availability, and at 10 AM there wasn't any. But these two, oh no, they lost their entitled minds. Voices were raised. The clerk's intelligence was questioned. Her English, which was impeccable but slightly accented, we were in Buenos Aires, was mocked. It was full Karen energy, but double-barrel gay edition. Security eventually stepped in. When it was finally our turn, I felt like I needed to make amends for the sins of our people. I apologized to the clerk, told her that nobody should be spoken to like that, and I casually mentioned how much we appreciated her professionalism. We had a lovely little chat about travel and the cruise, while she processed what I assumed was a placeholder for when check-in time rolled around. Except it wasn't. With a smile, she handed us 2 keys for a suite. A massive suite with a stunning view and rooftop pool access right down the hall. Enjoy your stay, she said with a wink. And enjoy we did. So, to the entitled queens who screamed their way into oblivion, gracias, darlings. That view was everything. Okay, now this story is just brilliant. It's so good. So good. It's just great to see just entitled people getting calmer. That is pretty much what my channel was built on in the first place. And this story here is just a great reminder of that. Phenomenal scenes. And I'm gonna be honest, a gay cruise through South America sounds like so much fun. I mean, I'm not gay, sadly, but get me on there. I think I'd have a great time. Entitled Disney Mum cuts the line, so I get her and her kids kicked off the ride. Today, I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. Super fun day. Lines longer than I remember, but maybe I was just excited back then. My friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times, and it didn't matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4, mum, 2 daughters and dad, walk through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled, asking what they're doing. The mum claims they forgot something on the ride. They make it to the part of the ride where single riders, fast pass riders, and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me screams, "What did you forget?" Everyone in the single rider lane is fuming as we all realise she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and I. We're shocked that no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement. So, when my friend and I get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids looked like and what she did. He says, at this point, since they're already in the line to board the car, he can't do much. We make it to the car boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. I stop yet another employee and explain the situation. She says she will let someone know, but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then, one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and me, pulls on his arm, and says, "Come on, Dad." We turn around, and the dad is behind us. He refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in the line complaining about what they did. So everyone starts speaking louder. The whole line. What a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone is waiting the same. Some people for hours. Why do they think they're special? Why lie to get what you want? The whole line is loudly speaking, so these people know exactly what we think of them. The dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame, and his family inches closer to the front of the line. I had had enough at that point. I talked to the people in front of me and asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'll be danged if they're getting on this ride. I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators, and they were all happy to step aside. The mum is blocking the walkway because they're next up. I tap her on her side and say, "Excuse me," and stare her down. She slides over without a word. I then tell the ride operator, this lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line, claiming she forgot something. You can ask anyone in this line. She gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was, and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Disney Mum is trying to say that both of us are lying, but then everyone in the line starts yelling and telling the same story, determined not to let her or her kids on the ride. They were eventually escorted out the side door, and everyone in the line genuinely clapped. Oh, I mean, these are just the worst sort of people, line cutters. I don't really know why that they feel entitled to do this. Like, literally, this is the number one sort of example of everyone is in the exact same boat, right? I mean, everyone knows how queues work. Everyone knows that at Disney, a lot of the time queues are pretty ridiculous, but everyone sort of accepts that. That is Disneyland or Disney World. And you're all in it together. Like, you're all going to get on the ride. Don't worry. Everyone knows it's going to take ages. But that's it. Now, yes, if you're a single rider, that's part of the point. You go much quicker. If you're in the, what's it called, like the quick pass lane, whatever it is, I've forgotten what it's called. You'll let me know in the comments down below. You also go quicker, but that's fine because you've paid for that or you're going on your own. Whereas this is just a disgrace and is obviously going to annoy lots and lots of people that are, you know, acting within the rules. Why do this? Surely, I mean, this is the thing that I always say actually on these stories, is that if you have any morals, you just wouldn't do this. But then again, these people have no morals, which is why they do it in the first place. Because I'm thinking about myself, like I wouldn't be able to live with people shouting at me or just knowing that I'm cutting them in line, but then I wouldn't do it because I'm that sort of person. Whereas, well, a normal person, whereas this person is just disgusting, obviously. Respect to her husband, although if my wife was doing this, I just couldn't be with her. Genuinely, that would be enough to not be with somebody if they were that impolite, because it's just so ignorant and rude and just so disrespectful and obviously entitled, thinking you're above everyone else. So it says a lot about a person that they do something like this. And I agree. Like, what sort of example is this to set for your kids? Now for our final entitled people story of this episode. Co-worker fancies herself my mum. Quits when I correct her delusion. When I, 38 years old, non-binary, was in my early 30s, I used to work in the office of an apartment complex for university students. Our front office staff had a ridiculous turnover rate, to the point that for over half my 4 years there, I was the only full-time front staff. Management hired a new full-time person, Emily. Emily was a few years younger than me, multilingual, had a degree in hospitality and sales, and had just moved to my state. Two important things about me. My mum had recently passed away, and I am overweight. Part of my job involved lots of lifting and carrying heavy packages up the long, steep hill that our complex was situated over, so I'm fairly muscular and rather fit under my extra fluff, which I'm very proud of. By contrast, my mum never got above 110 pounds in her whole life. She meant well, but almost 30 years of her picking at me about my weight had made it a sore subject. Things went well for a while, and then Emily's obsession with healthy eating started. I mentioned a restaurant, and she pulled up a menu to tell me what to order with a comment about being my mum now. I shut it down and told her about the loss of my family. She brought meals for me and then got offended I didn't want them. She saw my soda and told me not to drink those anymore. Not recommended. She told me. I had a snack and she opened a bag of trail mix and crossed to my desk with it. I saw what was about to happen in slow motion. I flung both hands over my snack to shield my food, and she upended the entire bag onto my plate. I don't even like nuts, so I had to throw the whole thing away. I told her several times to stop. She apologized but didn't change the behavior. I involved management and they said she was just being friendly. This went on for at least 6 months. Then came the final straw. I don't remember what brought it up, but she was talking to a resident, glanced across at me and chirped, "I'm teaching her to be healthy." Now ignore the misgendering here, which I also talked to her about repeatedly. I'm non-binary and I use they/them. I'm like her mum. I saw red. Usually I would have waited for the resident to leave and addressed her patiently in private again. This time though, I couldn't. It was one pick too many, not least of all because she didn't even address the comment to me, but about me to one of our residents. I snapped. I pushed out of my desk and I said something to the effect of, "I had a mum, she's dead, and you're not her. Stop trying to act like it." The entire climate of the office changed. Emily stopped talking to me and eventually quit, which I still feel bad about, but only a little. Management froze me out for making the workplace hostile, and I quit myself not long after, and I'm much happier where I am now. I mean, you definitely shouldn't feel bad about Emily quitting there, because she's just a terrible person. Like, what is she doing? And also, I guess in that one moment, you made the workplace hostile, but surely there's enough context there, and you've had these discussions with HR management before, so they know what's going on. For them to then come back and say, "Okay, look, we'd much rather you didn't do this, but we understand why you did it and we can make an exception this time. Emily is going to be let go and you can have a warning," rather than you getting frozen out for making the workplace hostile. What are you supposed to do then? Just allow someone to just bully you in the workplace? Surely not. That's insane. And I get it. Like, yeah, You probably shouldn't have done it. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have done it in front of a resident, but also who cares? Like, you've got to stand up for yourself at some point. But good on you for quitting, and I'm happy that, yeah, you're happier now. But Jesus, again, I don't know why I'm always surprised here, but what a terrible person. Someone actually says in the comments, you were not the one who made the workplace hostile. Somebody in management was friends with Emily and protected her when they should have given her the consequences of being disgustingly horrible. Body shaming, bullying, contaminating food, which is another point. I mean, imagine if you were allergic to nuts. I thought about that when I was reading this. Goodness me. But yeah, maybe that is what happened. Maybe someone in management was mates with Emily, and it's a shame, but again, it's probably a good thing you got out of that work environment. There we go. That's it. That's going to do it for this one. Goodness me. I mean, this is a thing. I've not been on Entitled Parents, Entitled People for a while. Sometimes I forget how just ridiculously, I want to say a stronger word here, but it's probably against YouTube TOS and Spotify TOS and Podcast TOS, so I'm not going to. But you can use your imagination as to what word I wanted to use there. Someone tried to stop me from using the women's bathroom because they mistook me for a guy. This happened when I finally had the nerve to try a pixie cut hairstyle. I was really happy about it because it felt like me. I will admit that when I shop for clothes, I do not care for gender norms. For example, I bought a man's Hawaiian shirt because it felt breezy to me, and I really liked its fabric. So, onto the story. I was in the mall with my then boyfriend and went straight for the women's bathroom as usual. There was no one there except for a woman putting on makeup. I went inside and was almost close to one of the stalls when said lady quickly approached me with makeup tools still in hand. "Isn't this comfort room for women only?" And I was confused. Like, yeah, because there's obviously a big sign out there. But then I realized she was staring intently at my chest, as if trying to determine if I'm really a girl or some guy entering a woman's bathroom. And I really don't understand why she'd think of the latter, because I was wearing short shorts with leggings. Sure, I was wearing the breezy men's Hawaiian shirt, but it was unbuttoned and loose to reveal a tight black tank top underneath. Like, that's definitely feminine. The whole situation felt so ridiculous to me that I made eye contact, pointed in the direction of my shorts with both hands, and casually asked, "Wanna check?" If she's gonna make this weird, I'm gonna make it weirder. Wanna enter a stall with me and have a peek? Sure, why not? We're both women, sarcastically. I like to think the silence that followed made her realize who was being a creep, because she backed out immediately and said no. I finally did my business in the stall, and while I was washing my hands, she apologized, and I told her it was no big deal. But I have to apologize for the trans people out there who get treated like that when they're just minding their own business. Okay, and there we go. That is it for the first story. And that is what I mean when I say in the introduction that if you don't know this subreddit, you get to know it very quickly. That is the beauty of r/traumatize them back. You see the instant karma. Whereas, on like r/prorevenge or nuclear revenge, or even like petty revenge, sometimes you don't actually see that immediate revenge. You don't even ever sometimes get the payoff. Whereas here, it's always pretty instant. I mean, at least most of the time. And that is the beauty of this sub. This is something that I really would love to do. And again, I think I've been saying this for like the last 6 years now. It's very, very rare that I ever find myself in a situation like this. But I do think the thing to do is just go with weirdness and sarcasm if someone's coming at you being weird. And just try and make them feel as uncomfortable as possible. It's just funny. And look, you could have taken this really personally and got really angry, but I do think that's kind of what this woman wanted. Now, interestingly, OP has left this little edit saying, "Wow, I never realized this would blow up." Now, reading the comments, I wanted to believe in good faith that she learned her lesson, but maybe you're all right. She wasn't actually sorry that she harassed me, and she was actually more sorry that she harassed the wrong person. I guess that she wasn't right. And I think that sort of supports your point when you said at the end that, it was okay for you, but yeah, what if you were trans and having to deal with this sort of thing every single day? It's horrible from her. And hopefully, by your reaction and by that karma that you gave her, she now won't do this to the next person, because it's a horrible thing to do. And also, who really cares? Like, what are the chances that a guy walks into it just doesn't happen? I mean, look, yeah, maybe 1 in a million it happens. But ultimately, if someone is in the female toilets, it's very likely they're a female. Just let them be and just get on with your day. Now for our second traumatized them back story. My father accused me of not being sick while I had a heart attack. Back in 2017, when I was just 17, I had a heart attack. It happened on Christmas Eve of all days. Instead of getting support from my family, my father accused me of making the whole thing up for attention. I hate attention at family gatherings. I was rushed to our local hospital, and things were so serious they had to transfer me by ambulance to a larger hospital in the city because they couldn't treat me locally. You'd think that would have been proof enough that this wasn't some ploy for attention, but no. I ended up needing surgery, and I went through a tough 2-month recovery period. It was one of the most physically and emotionally challenging times of my life. Through all of that, my father never once visited me in the hospital. He was too scared and ashamed to show up, and he's never apologized for how he treated me during one of the worst moments of my life. To this day, we don't speak. I've cut him out of my life because I realized I deserve better than a parent who accuses me of faking a life-threatening medical emergency. Yeah, I feel like your last sentence there, OP, really does sum up this entire thing. Why would you ever want someone like that in your life? Imagine you're about to die, you're dying, your heart is failing, and your dad just goes, "Stop messing around, man. Like, you're fine. Just chill. Stop trying to get attention, you little rat." The anger would just be, palpable. Family calls me to get me to go back home. I revealed the reason why I left. So, I've left home. I'm more or less homeless and lodging in a hotel that a friend paid for. God bless his heart. This is due to my mum physically assaulting me for the first time since my dad died. That reason is a story for another day. She slapped me 3 times and my face got swollen, so I left 4 days later. I had already been planning on leaving later this year because she's been more or less stealing from me, or more accurately, stealing from my late dad's estate that he left for me in his will. She's been selling some properties, and it's 2 years ago that I found out that that's actually a crime. When I tried to get her to do the right thing, she called me a gold digger, and since then, so many things have happened. I've gotten a lawyer and we're working the logistics out to get what's mine. After leaving home last Friday, I've had a barrage of calls from family members. Everyone has been trying to convince me to come home, and even trying to evoke my late dad's name to get me to come home. We were very, very, very close. Cue this incident. My in-law calls me on Sunday and says that my mum came to his house and told him what's happening. He starts with saying that I'm making the wrong decision. I'm going to be wrong, 2 wrongs don't make a right, etc, etc. He doesn't know that my mum slapped me, and I don't tell him because he says, and I quote, "I won't ask what made you leave yet. I want you to go back so we talk about it." He keeps on saying that the path I'm on is wrong, and so many people who have gone on the path I'm on didn't have it ending well for them. All I try to say falls on deaf ears. And since we're Muslim, he starts quoting hadiths to support him and me going back. After he's done going on a tangent and I finally get the chance to speak, I tell him that I'm thanking him for the concern. And even though I'm not ready to tell him the full story, I just want him to know that the main reason I've left is because my mum is stealing from an orphan. Now, in my religion, when your dad dies, you're classified as an orphan. So I was letting him know that my mum was stealing from me. And in our religion, stealing from an orphan gives you an automatic and cemented ticket to hell. As you guessed it, he decided to actually listen now. He stopped trying to guilt me to going home. After I gave him a summarized version of events, he starts saying we need to talk to my mum, I need to tell the family, etc. Promptly forgetting his mission to get me to go back home. I felt very satisfied when he apologized and said he's sorry I'm going through that and we need to rectify it, so I should update him on whatever happens next. Safe to say he hasn't called me since. And since that experience, any other family member who calls, I just let them know that she's stealing from me, and each and every one of them stops asking me to go back home. Now everyone knows, or will eventually, I guess. In all this, it seems my mum didn't expect me to leave home, and she's been very remorseful and worried, but it's a little too late for that, I guess. Sometimes, it's just not fair, is it? Why have you lost your father when you were so close to him, but not your mum, who just treats you so horribly and is just a genuinely horrible person? It's just like, I don't know, it's just tough, isn't it? So like, you're dealing with all that grief and the fact that you've lost, maybe the person that was closest to you in your life, definitely your closest parent, or I presume family member. And then on top of all of that, you've got this. And the good news is that like your family are now beginning to understand how terrible your mother is. And, I kind of get it from their perspective a little bit. They're hearing these things from your mum, and then she's like, please try and get my kid back. I don't know why they've left. So then they're trying to get you back, it makes sense. But then after hearing the truth, I'm glad that they're switching sides and actually understanding what's happened and why you've made those decisions. So yeah, again, like the main point is it's just a very, very sad situation. But you've done well. You've made the right choice and you're out of there. So fair play to you, OP. Now for our fourth story. And if you thought, guys, for one quick, cheeky second that the stories, you know, after the first, second or third we're going to get a little bit more tame or sort of filler just, you know, to flesh out the episode, then how about this for a title? Lunch supervisor tried to inject my sister with insulin she didn't need. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at a pretty young age, 8. I'm actually really lucky that I was able to have such a good support system during my primary school years. All my teachers knew that I had diabetes, as well as the lunch ladies and the lunch supervisors. And they never really treated me differently, apart from being concerned for me sometimes. This actually concerns a lunch supervisor who me and my sister, suspect to be kind of racist, and it happened a few months, around 5, after I got diagnosed. For context, we are black, and when we were younger, me and my sister, who I'll call Brenda for clarity, were pretty much identical, despite the fact that she was a year younger than me. It got to a point that relatives used to remark that people could almost mistake us for twins. Now at school that wasn't really a problem because we used to act very differently. I was more introverted and very much into books, while she was a quintessential extrovert and was always more fierce. And for people who have seen us day in and day out, it was clear that we were different. Despite the fact that this supervisor knew us by name, by face, and could differentiate us, she would always act snide to us in a way that was uncomfortable. Our school was incredibly diverse, with a minority of white people and mostly Asian and black people, so I honestly don't know where this came from. Anyway, this supervisor knows that I take insulin for lunch, and that I'm to go straight to the nurse once it's lunchtime. I was even allowed to leave early sometimes to get my dose. One day, she sees my sister playing in the playground before they call us for lunch. We were allowed to play for around 15 minutes before lunch, eat lunch, and then get 30 minutes to play again before classes started back up. And, I'm paraphrasing from my sister here, grabbed my sister and started dragging her to the nurse. The nurse's office, in which I and my fellow diabetics would take our insulin, was around a 10-minute walk from the playground, and quite close to both the lunch hall and the pastoral team. And the separate nurse's office for normal scrapes and stuff was really around 2 minutes from the playground. Despite the fact that my sister was crying out, saying, "I'm not OP, I'm Brenda, her sister," she apparently didn't believe her and marched her straight there. She gets to the nurse and sees she's not there. Of course she's not, she's at the normal one and we've already taken our doses, and then tries to force my sister to take insulin. Guys, this is incredibly dangerous for non-diabetics, and despite the fact that my sister was crying at this point, the supervisor didn't care. One of the pastoral team hears this crying, goes to investigate, and comes to the scene. One look at my sister and she asks my sister, "Brenda, are you okay? What's happened?" My sister tells me that the supervisor just went pale, like all the blood drained from her face. Then she goes red, and as my sister is explaining, tries to butt in and say, "Well, she didn't say she was Brenda. How was I to know? I thought she was OP." Yeah, that didn't really fly well. Now, a lot of people, and I assume you guys are wondering as well, what actually happened to this person. And you know what's crazy about it? She didn't get fired, the supervisor. OP has said, "I'm actually sorry," they've left a little edit here. "I'm sorry about the inconclusiveness of the story. I forgot to add it in probably because she didn't get fired. I remember seeing her in year 6. It was 3 years after I was diagnosed. I'm pretty sure she got suspended, not fired, and had to go through rigorous first aid training, as well as being sent, I think that's the word, to the board of directors of which our headmistress was on. I absolutely agree that she should have gotten fired, but she was one of those who'd been there forever. Just because she was there for a long time though and was friendly with people doesn't mean that she shouldn't have gotten fired." I agree with that. Like, surely there are certain things where you're like, I don't really care how long you've been here. This could have been awful. And as you said, this is an incredibly dangerous thing for non-diabetics to have insulin. I mean, I presume that, yeah, you could go into an absolute, I don't know, your body could just get completely screwed up and it could be lethal. That's what I think. Who knows? I might be wrong there, but I don't see why it couldn't be the case. So, yeah, it could have been so badly. I'm glad that this all ended up okay, but wow, just think. If that had happened, then would have been the end for the school. Let's be realistic. And that is, I think, reason enough to have fired this supervisor. Way too rash in her decision making for me. Now for our final story of this episode. You really don't want to assume that someone is pregnant. A few years ago, I gained a significant amount of weight suddenly, and I'm still on a very healthy dose of steroids following emergency surgery to remove the tumor that caused that, and a variety of other health issues. Anyone that's ever been on a high dose of steroids for a long time, or had a tumor in their endocrine system, will tell you it's like being possessed. You look like an inflatable balloon and have mood swings that totally change your personality. You have hair in places you shouldn't have hair, and you literally feel so tired you could die on a daily basis. It's a bad time. Do not recommend. So, I was waiting for a train on the way back from meeting a friend. We had a couple of drinks, minding my own business, out of breath and swaying slightly. Not from the drinks, I'd only had a glass of wine. A woman approached me, struck up a conversation. Nothing bad at first. She pointedly referenced that she had 2 healthy pregnancies, and I could see where she was going with this, but I wasn't about to stop her from putting her foot in it. She asked what I'd done for the evening. I said I'd had some drinks with friends, softly hinting to her to maybe quit while she was ahead. Undeterred, after some polite conversation, she slips in, "You really shouldn't be drinking pregnant, not even 1 glass." I'm usually very mildly mannered and not big on confrontation. But Barry the brain tumor had other ideas. I saw red. "Oh, my belly? No, I'm not pregnant. I have a brain tumor. They recently told me it's too late to try radiation and that I'm at risk of a heart attack until they can remove it." I left it at that. Entirely factual. The best thing is that the train went for another 15 minutes. I cheerfully let that be the longest, most silent 15 minutes of her life. There we go. What a way to end this episode. That 15 minutes would have been absolutely joyous. It's so good that this woman couldn't just walk away, but had to just sit there with you, like, I don't know, next to her, whatever. just thinking about what's just happened. It's so good. Yeah, I mean, again, like, as I say with all of these, very sorry you're in that situation. Like, obviously less than ideal, but when you do have something like this take place and you can deal with it like this, it's just pretty awesome. It tells me a lot about your character. The fact that you didn't just, I don't know, back down or get really angry just shows you're pretty awesome, and this woman is a disgrace. But there we go. That 15 minutes, as I said, must have been majestic. My sister seems to think she's entitled to my trust fund and lied to try and get it. There's a bit of backstory to this, and I'm not sure what's relevant, but I'm sure you'll tell me if I blather on too much. Mostly, I just need to rant. So, I am a 38-year-old woman, and my family is a little messed up. I essentially have/had 5 parents and 3 different groups of siblings. It's a bit much. As a child, I was living in the US with my adoptive parents, and a lot of stuff went down that wasn't great. So I moved back to the UK when I was 9. I had a lot of trauma and the beginnings of a rather serious drug problem. And so my US dad set up a trust for me before he died so that anything mental health related was paid for, and I didn't have to stress about being able to sort myself out as I got older. It's been rather handy over the last 30 years, paying for a home when I was a teenager, therapy, rehab, basically anything needed to help me not die. At some point in my teenage years, I made contact with my biological parents and their other kids, and I was welcomed, in quotes, back into the fold. Some of my full siblings had issues with this. Fair enough. It was a big change to everyone's lives. My little sister, now early 30s, apparently found it particularly hard. And so we've never gotten along, and we've been almost no contact now for a decade. This has become particularly apparent in recent weeks after she contacted the solicitors who are in control of the trust, pretending to be from a rehab facility in the US. She sent them an invoice for a 3-month stay, requesting payment to the bank account of a friend of hers in the US. The first I heard about this was a phone call from said solicitors offering their commiseration that I was due to enter the facility, wishing me luck and double checking the details. I am livid. This is tens of thousands of pounds that she's tried to steal from me. Money that she has absolutely no right to. She never met my adoptive parents. She's not owed any money from them. She's lived a perfectly normal life with both of her parents, her other siblings, holidays, uni paid for, no big dramas. And she thinks that she can just take from me because she wants to buy a house, and thinks that I should help her out because I ruined her childhood. Except she can't even just ask, she has to try and steal it. I don't understand at this point, guys, how OP could possibly have ruined their childhood. Just by coming into their lives a little bit later, how is that ruining your childhood? I mean, I suppose she was young when you came back into her life, but wouldn't you be happy to have an older sister just appear in your life as a young girl? I mean, I think you probably would be, I don't know. Anyway, let's carry on. I have no idea what to do about this, because if I go to the police, then it will create even more drama in the family that I could do without, and I feel like that's exactly what she wants. Our parents will side with her, and she knows it. I don't want to give her the satisfaction, but I'm just so mad that she chose this specific way to try and take what's not hers. It feels like such a low blow. Yeah, obviously she's getting sweet FA, but what the heck? Now that is the end of the post, but there is an update to this one, and also OP left an immediate edit to add some more information saying, because a few people have asked, my father had to bail me out of a trashy situation a couple of years ago, which included getting a flight to another country to come and get me. Obviously, I insisted he accept reimbursement for his flights, despite him not needing the money, so he would have had the details of my solicitors and the fund from that time. My sister often visits my parents, so I suspect she would have seen the information in my dad's office at some point. I've certainly never mentioned the fund to any of my siblings. I guess that's the questions in the comments of how do your siblings even know about the fund, which is a fair point. Now, the comments down below, unsurprisingly, say that the OP needs to go and do something about this, right? Because what's going on is illegal. So somebody said, you really should go to the police. If she had the audacity to do this, there is no stopping her from escalating even more. If your parents side with her, that is also useful information. You can't trust them and should be very careful around them. If not, just cut them off. Do not let these people treat you like this. Family or not, you deserve respect, and I could not agree more. As I said though, there is an update which was posted after OP read through the comments. So here is the update. This got pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. I'm balancing getting things done, and I'm tied up with not losing my mind, which is always fun. Solicitors are reporting everything for me, as they are indeed required to do. Turns out I'd misunderstood and thought I had to get involved, but no, it's all on them. And I'm going to just let what happens happen. I'll be setting up a meeting at some point to go through all of the transactions made over the last 20 years or so, just to make sure that nothing else nefarious has gone on. Thank you everyone for the reassurance that I'm not doing something wrong by wanting this sorted, but I'd appreciate a little less speculation on my life and the role my parents play in it if you could manage that. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I wasn't going to do that, to be fair, anyway. OP's not given too much context. I suppose I did sort of speculate a little bit earlier by asking why your sister would be annoyed that you came into their life, but whatever. Not important. The main point is that I agree with the comments. What's going on here is potentially very, very illegal. So yeah, I mean, the only thing to do is just, yeah, talk to your solicitors, and if you have to, get the police involved. Simple as that. But I mean, the main point is the audacity of your sister to say, I found out about a trust fund here. You know what? I feel like I'm owed it. Who knows why? But I just feel like I am. So I'm going to go and try and get it illegally. If anything, just got to rate it. All right, now for our second story. Entitled neighbor called police to my parents' house for my husband hunting on their land. My parents are retired and live in a little house on about 7 acres of land. It's not a big plot of land, but it's cozy and private, just outside of town, and about 6 acres are woods with a creek running through the center of the woods. It really is a very beautiful piece of land. Sorry, I've just got to stop you there. 7 acres of land is not a big plot of land. Now, I don't know which country this takes place in, but goodness me. I mean, if you had 7 acres of land in London, which is where I live, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you were in the most deprived part of London. That would be millions and millions of pounds. So, fair play. With the woods and creek, they get lots of animals going through, including deer. A couple of years ago for Christmas, we got my parents a few trail cams so they can see what is going through their land. My mum likes photography, and she's been able to get lots of photos of deer, foxes, wild turkeys, coyotes, and other wildlife going through their yard. Okay, so this is not in England then, obviously. As you may imagine, this is some prime hunting land. My husband occasionally enjoys hunting and has from time to time gone down there for deer season, but he doesn't do it frequently. My parents have had several people stop and ask them to hunt their land, and they always say no. Frankly, it's just barely big enough to legally hunt, and they don't want people all over their property all the time hunting. They have no problem anytime my husband wants to hunt, which isn't often, but he's family. There is a neighbor who lives down the road who badly wants to hunt on my parents' land and has been told no repeatedly. They don't allow hunting. Last year, my husband was in the woods and found a tree stand installed that wasn't his. Unfortunately, when they checked the trail cams, the SD cards had been removed. No proof it's that neighbour, but they suspect him. My parents travel a lot, so it would be really easy to do without their knowledge. My husband took the tree stand down, and I believe the cameras were replaced with new ones that don't need SD cards. Last month, before deer season started, the neighbour again asked my parents to hunt, and they said no. They don't allow hunting except their son-in-law if he wants to hunt. My husband decided he'd try and get a deer this year for deer season. So he got a deer permit and went on the first day of deer season. He shot a decent sized buck within 10 minutes of getting in the woods. My dad was awake and heard the shotgun blast and came out to see if my husband needed help. My husband got the deer field dressed, then my dad, who's the nicest guy you'd ever meet, got his tractor out of the garage and drove it to the woods, scooped up the deer in the bucket and put it in the bed of my husband's truck. So, hunting ended pretty quickly into deer season this year. About an hour later, a county sheriff's deputy and a game warden showed up at my parents' house. They said they received a complaint of unauthorized hunting and deer poaching. The officer said that same neighbor, they actually gave his name, called and said they'd been told repeatedly there was no hunting allowed on that ground. They'd seen someone go into the woods with a shotgun, heard a shot, and then somebody with an orange tractor picked up the deer and put it in the bed of a black pickup truck. In our state, if you're caught poaching, they can confiscate your firearm, any hunting gear you have with you, and any vehicles used in the course of hunting and poaching. So the neighbor was really hopeful that they'd take my husband's gun, truck, and my dad's tractor. My dad said, "This is my house and my land, and the orange tractor is mine. The black truck belongs to my son-in-law, who has permission to hunt here anytime he wants." My husband produced his valid deer tags and all was good. Also, screw that neighbour who had to be watching the woods with binoculars. There's no way he could have seen all that from his yard otherwise. I mean, yeah, what a life this guy must live, because I completely agree. How would you know that that was going on your neighbour's property unless, firstly, you have binoculars, almost definitely. I mean, if you have land of 6-7 acres, even if it's just like next door for me right now, I'd struggle to know what was going on unless I was looking through binoculars and seeing the specifics of someone having a deer in their truck or whatever. But secondly, what surely must be going on here is this guy is sitting by his window all day, every day, waiting. Unless he heard the sound of a truck and just like rushed to the window and got his binoculars out and was like, right, I can get them. That is probably what he did, to be fair. Anyway, it just sounds like a very, very nosy neighbor. But yeah, why are people so weird about hunting is the main thing. Like, look, I'm not for hunting at all. I don't agree with it. But why are people like surely you respect someone else's choice when it's their land? And what is the problem with this person hunting? Like, why is the neighbor trying to get this person arrested? Is it just the fact that they were told no and they're like, well, okay, fine. If I can't, then no one else can? Just weird. If you want to hunt, get your own land and hunt on that. I mean, don't. If you want to, you can. Entitled Karen tried to steal my dad's inheritance. I apologize in advance for not knowing the legal terms in English. This took place in a non-English speaking country, so I've tried to explain this the best I can. Before I begin, here is some background info on the inheritance laws of my country. In my country, if you own land, you can't do whatever you want with it when your spouse dies. That is, if you have direct heirs, aka children. So let's say that you and your spouse own a large piece of land and you have 3 children together. Your spouse dies and you want to sell the property. Before you can do that though, you have to give your children their share of the inheritance from their deceased parents. It has to be a fair price, so market value. Once you've paid them out, you can then do whatever you want with the property. If you haven't or aren't capable of doing so, you can't sell. So, now onto the story. My paternal grandma and her 2 sisters owned a cabin together. When this took place in 2006, the oldest sister had already passed away and her share was inherited by her children, my dad's cousins. They're not important to the story. This story is about my grandma, my dad, and my grandma's youngest sister, Karen. Karen was the baby of the family, the golden child. She was superficially charming, had married up, and was very used to getting her way. I don't think she was ever told no. Now, Karen loved the cabin and spent most weekends there. My dad's cousins were not interested in selling their share of the property, but Karen had been wanting Grandma's share for years. My grandma and dad spent very little time there, but Grandma paid her share on all repairs on the property. Another thing about my grandma was that she never dealt with money of any kind. Grandpa took care of everything related to property, taxes, etc. He died a few years before this took place, and my dad had to take on everything related to this, as Grandma was too anxious to do it. She never paid Dad his part of the inheritance from Grandpa, and Karen was well aware of this. In addition, Grandma had battled cancer for a number of years at this point. It wasn't super aggressive, and she was given medicine that allowed her to be comfortable. She wasn't going to drop dead any minute. Still, she was reduced physically and was a very anxious person in general. In the winter of 2006, Karen paid Grandma a visit. She stayed overnight, something she never did. A few days later, Dad called Grandma for a chat. Grandma mentioned that Karen had been there and that they'd reached an agreement about the cabin, that Karen had brought some papers for Grandma to sign. My dad immediately knew something was amiss. What papers? It wasn't the deed, was it? Well, yes, Grandma confirmed. She told Dad that Karen had come to see her, that she wanted to buy her share of the cabin, that she'd brought the deed already, it just needed Grandma's signature. She said that Karen had asked her for a price, and Grandma, who knew nothing about money and the actual worth of anything, suggested $3,000. I think that's roughly what it is. It's a different currency, roughly the sum in today's money. Dad was livid. Firstly, of course, that's nowhere close to the actual value of the property. And secondly, the way Karen went about it, she basically ambushed Grandma with the deed. She stayed overnight as well to make sure she kept complete control of the situation so that Grandma couldn't call Dad to discuss it with him. Dad wasn't opposed to the idea of selling Grandma's share to Karen, but it would have to be at market price, and Karen knew this. Dad immediately called her, told her this was unacceptable and that he was going to contest the sale. Karen just told him that that was what Grandma wanted, that she set the price herself and Karen had done nothing wrong. Dad got a lawyer ASAP and so did Karen. They went back and forth the entire spring and summer. Dad refused to relent. Karen kept proclaiming her right. Grandma was distraught. To her, a feud within the family was the worst thing that could ever happen. She begged Dad to let it go. Dad refused. This was his inheritance. At the very beginning of 2007, it finally went to trial. The trial only lasted a couple of hours. According to my parents, the judge threw the book at Karen. The sale was a blatant violation of our country's inheritance laws and was ruled null and void. The ownership was transferred back to Grandma. My mum later told me that Karen walked into the courtroom all cocky, self-assured, there to claim her right. As the judge kept going through the documentation and kept on asking questions, her demeanour became more and more defeated. At the end, she just hung her head. A week after the trial, Grandma passed away. Karen didn't attend the funeral. Oh wow. Before all of this, Karen and Dad got on really well. After, they would never speak again. After Grandma died, Dad wanted to sell his share of the cabin, but he would never sell to Karen. Ever. That was forever off the table. He approached his cousins, explained the entire ugly situation, and proposed them to buy his share. Thankfully, they were interested and bought him out at a fair price. After her defeat in court and the death of the sister she tried to scam, Karen spent very little time at the cabin. For the first time in her life, she'd been told a firm no. This was something she'd really wanted, and for the first time it didn't go her way. Clearly it was too bitter. There's no happy ending to this story, only a message that greed and entitlement can ruin your prospects and burn family relations to the ground. Well, there we go. No doubt about it. Greedy family members are the worst. And it's something I've talked about on my channel before. I'm very fortunate in my family that people like this just do not exist. In fact, I've seen just one fight in my whole massively extended family, which covers, you know, all of England pretty much, and then a lot of Mauritius as well. And that's all I've ever seen. And it was like two people I don't even know, just at someone's party, like probably 10 to 15 years ago. Apart from that, easy dubs all around. Everyone's pretty chill, which is good. Suits me. I would hate to be in a family that had as much conflict as this. So yes, I'm grateful. But there we go. Bully on plane I'm currently on. So this is being written using plain Wi-Fi or, you know, Starlink or whatever. And it's live. We can see how this unfolds as OP is writing it, which is very rare actually. I can't remember many stories where people are writing them and posting them on Reddit as it's actually happening to them. I am a 43-year-old woman and I'm an anxious flyer. Not due to fear of flying, but fear of people. So I'm pretty happy with how I'm handling this situation that's happening right now. I'm flying back from a vacation in Costa Rica. I paid extra for priority and an exit row seat. The flight was supposedly full, but somehow the middle seat next to me, I'm in an aisle seat, is empty. It's a 4-hour flight, so not having to rub shoulders with a stranger is a welcome surprise. I get all settled in. My electronics are charging, I've got stuff in the seat back, Wi-Fi connected, and then I order some food and drinks from the flight attendant. Having an extra tray table between me and the window seat passenger is also quite helpful. Just as I'm starting my snacks and mix my drink, the guy across the aisle from me, a man in his 50s, asks if the middle seat is empty. I have to take off my headphones and then respond, "Yup," and I put my headphones back on. A couple of minutes later, he starts talking at me again, so I remove my headphones again. He says, "Hey, switch seats with me so that my wife in the back of the plane can come up and sit next to me in that empty middle seat." I say, "Well, I'm all settled in right now and I don't really want to move while eating, but if you wait," he interrupts me to say it'll be really easy to switch all of our stuff, and I again start to say that I will switch when I'm done eating. But he doesn't even listen to me. He just talks over me, saying things like, "Unbelievable. So I can't sit next to my wife because you won't just do a simple thing like switch one aisle seat for another? So ridiculous. How unbelievably rude." There's so much wrong with this, by the way. First of all, I assume that there is somebody in his middle seat or someone sitting next to him. Otherwise, his wife could just go and sit next to him there. So it's not as simple as just switching one seat for another, because you have, in effect, OP, 1.5 seats, which is obviously huge. I mean, if you're on a flight, doesn't even matter if it's short haul or long haul, and the middle seat is vacant and people are coming on, and you're thinking to yourself, please, like, grace me. This is going to be so good if no one sits there. Like, the difference between if someone sits there and someone doesn't, right? It's a huge difference. So the fact that this guy hasn't realized that, I mean, he has realized it, but the fact that he's not understanding that is really stupid. And then secondly, if you want to sit next to your wife, book seats together. It's not that hard. I mean, like, genuinely, respect for OP for even entertaining this. I feel like I'd be inclined to do it, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to give up 1.5 seats for one seat. No way. Anyway, I kept trying to tell him to just wait a few minutes, but now he's annoying me. He never asked, he never said please, and immediately just started talking loudly and gesturing around to everyone, telling them how unbelievable I am. I realize now that I phrased his statement as a question when he said, "Let's switch seats." He said, "Hey, switch seats with me." He didn't actually question it at all. He didn't say, "Please can we?" He just said, "Switch seats." So then he finally takes a breath and says, "Well, how about after you finish eating, then you'll switch?" To which I say, "As I was telling you, I'd be fine switching after I eat, but not after you've been so rude. Now, I'm not going to switch with you at all. Well done, you." Of course, this makes him incensed. He continues to bluster and bloviate about how I'm so unbelievable and keeping him from his poor wife that is sitting with strangers. How dare I? Then he again tries to talk to the man next to him about how evil I am, and just starts leaning across the aisle and glaring right at me, 18 inches away from my face. That's horrible. That's just disgusting. For audio listeners, I'm holding up 2 hands to 18 inches. Not fun at all. At some point, he mumbles under his breath, and I think he said female dog, but it was hard to hear as I put my headphones back on and just ignored him. For the next hour, he continued to glare and yell back to his wife that I was preventing them from sitting together. So I just completely ignored him, and I text my friends, laughing and smiling a lot, just annoying him more, but not doing anything wrong or engaging him in any way. We're about an hour from landing at this point when OP is writing this, and he seems to have given up and is just leaning back and not staring at me anymore. I have a feeling he's going to say something when we're disembarking, either to me or the people around us, about how unbelievable and ridiculous I am. My plan is just to half smile wryly and say, "Okay, I'm going to try my best to not take the bait and get in an argument, because there isn't any point with people like this, but I know it will be hard for me. Any advice? Also, let me know what you would say in a situation like this." Damn, it's annoying that, like, I'm not reading this live, as in, like, when it was just posted. Because if you were on Reddit at the time this was posted, you could actually, like, influence a real life entitled people situation. What a privilege. If this guy was capable of listening, I would tell him it's his own fault for not upgrading his wife's seat and getting seats next to each other before the flight. I also want to reiterate that I would have switched, even though I didn't want to, until he became so rude and entitled. But I doubt it would make a difference, so I'm just not going to give any reaction instead. Thanks for reading. I'm trying to buck up before the plane lands. I hate being in situations like this, but I hate giving in to bullies even more. Should I have a quick look at what the comments said? Just to see if any of the info was good. I'm inclined to have a look. Somebody said, keep your headphones on and just ignore him. Nothing will enrage him more than you just being completely unbothered by the incident and having enjoyed an empty seat next to you the entire flight, not paying a single thought to him and his little tantrum at all. I would agree with that. I think that is the thing to do, especially given the fact that you said you don't like confrontation. If it was me though, I would be really tempted to get into an actual argument with him. I know that sounds bad, but I just would. I'd be like, what are you, I just have to say, like, what are you actually complaining about? You are an idiot. And I know, I can see the comments. You guys are saying, no, that's what he wants, which is right. But also maybe it would take someone actually standing up to him and being like, you are just so wrong here. Like, what on earth are you doing? If you want to sit next to your wife, buy 2 seats together, leave me alone. I don't know you. Stop being 18 inches from my face, to get him to actually not do it the next time. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is not the first time this guy's done this. And he probably has done this in the past, not paid for 2 seats next to each other, and then bullied someone else into getting them to change seats with him or his wife or whatever so they can sit together. So this has to stop at some point. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. First of all, what advice would you give to OP if you were commenting live on Reddit as this was happening? And secondly, what would you do in this situation? Entitled woman thinks she can ignore rules in a work zone. Hey everyone. I didn't sleep very well because of an incident at work yesterday. Thankfully, it's raining and I won't be working today, but I needed to vent. So, our cast of characters is as follows. I am a 26-year-old non-binary, but I'm not out to my co-workers, so they will refer to me as she throughout the story. We have an entitled driver, who is a woman in her 50s, an entitled passenger, a 20-year-old woman, I think probably her daughter, a state trooper, a man in his 40s, and my co-workers. Vicky, in her late 40s, our team leader, Florence in her late 50s, Teresa in her mid-50s, Ben, late 40s, and Carol, late 40s. I am a flagger. You know when there's road construction and there's someone out there holding a stop sign? That's me. We are a traffic control company, and we're one of the best in the state at what we do. It's gotten to the point that one contractor has even told us they refuse to work on the road if we or one other traffic company is not with them. I tell you this so that you know that what is about to occur was not due to any fault of me or my co-workers. It was purely on the entitled driver's ignorance. The job I'm currently assigned to is a long-term job with multiple parts on a major 2-lane highway. It's 55 miles per hour, but most people are used to doing 70. We have to be at company HQ at 5:30, drive an hour to get to the job site, work for however long the contractor wants us to, drive back to HQ, and then go home. All in all, it's a 12 to 14 hour day. We go straight to bed, get up, and we do it all again. We're all tired and we have no patience for dumb drivers. At the current step of this job, we have split into 2 teams and have 2 sites on the same road separated by a mile. So the drivers have no patience for us either. Due to some previous bad behavior from drivers, we have a state trooper assigned to assist us. He sits in a parking lot in between our zones and has one of our radios so we can reach him quickly. Now, before I get into the story proper, I want you to know what to do when you come across a flagging operation so you don't end up making a butt of yourself like the entitled driver of this story. 1. Your first warning sign will be actual signs. In extreme situations, you might only see 2. The first is road work ahead. I sure hope it does. Self-explanatory. Some companies might use variations like utility work or road construction, but they all mean the same thing. The second is a picture of a person holding a flag. This sign is telling you that there is someone ahead controlling traffic. Due to the nature of this job, and because we had enough space to do so, we had 5 signs placed in the lead up to our zone. In between the 2 mentioned, we also had one that said reduce speed and 1 lane road ahead. And at the end, we placed a second flagger picture, just in case people missed the first one. But as a driver, all of these signs should tell you one thing. Slow the F down. It's a good rule of thumb to do half the speed limit, apparently. Okay. Number 2, when you see a flagger, stop while still giving them plenty of space. If you see a cone several feet in front of the flagger, stop at the cone. I'm getting the idea that we're sort of foreshadowing what I'm about to read.
Because, yes, stopping at a cone is pretty obvious.
If there is an intersection between you and the flagger, stop before the intersection. If neither of these visual cues exist, give yourself enough space that if you were rear-ended, you wouldn't hit the flagger. In my case, both visual cues were present. A cone was placed on the other side of the intersection where I wanted people to stop. And 3, if you see several cars stopped in front of you, do not attempt to go around them. Again, I feel like we're foreshadowing here. They are stopped for a reason. You are risking a head-on collision. Stop behind the person in front of you and wait your turn. If you are truly in such a hurry that you cannot wait for traffic to move, make a U-turn, if safe to do so, and find another route to your destination. My job is to get you from point A to point B safely, not to get you there in a timely manner. So, with those ground rules established, on with the story. Our zone was about a half-mile long with 2 intersections. Yesterday, I was stationed at the south end of the north zone. This meant that I had the wonderful job of stopping people that had just went through the south zone before I could send them through my zone. I was also placed so that I could control one of the intersections in addition to the main road. The other intersection was a little ways down from the opposite end, so Ben was watching this intersection and letting people know when it was safe to go. Carol and Florence took turns flagging the opposite end of the main road, and I did the same with Teresa. And Vicky stayed near the contractor's crew in case they needed us to stop traffic for any reason. I drew over Google Maps for a visual guide of where we were placed in case my description is unclear. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so we've got a road, very straight road. At the bottom, we have OP and Teresa. Then we have a bit further up, Vicky. Then we have Ben at an intersection further up. And then at the top, we have C and F, Carol and Florence. I mean, looks pretty standard to me. If you're listening on podcast platform, you're not missing too much. It's pretty much what you'd expect. My last batch of cars was almost to the other end, and it was then Carol's turn to send traffic. I already had a line of about 6 cars with more approaching, but all these vehicles were well behaved. My first car stopped at the cone. The second car was Florence returning to her position after a bathroom break with her truck's amber lights on. The fourth car was a semi with its hazards on. I wasn't worried. Until I saw a blue SUV pull out from behind the semi and start passing my stopped traffic. I moved closer to the middle of the road in hopes of getting her attention and mouthed to the driver, "What the F are you doing?" The following shouting match ensued. "I didn't know! Nobody can see you. You should be behind the semi," the entitled driver said. "I'm where I need to be. You shouldn't be pulling around stop traffic on the frickin' highway. There were signs telling you I was here." Then the passenger got involved. "There weren't any signs. There was no warning." "Yeah, no one can see you back there. Move behind the semi so people can see you." There were 5 frickin' signs. Not to mention the 6 cars stopped in front of you. Have some frickin' common sense, lady. I assume Florence either heard the argument or saw me getting upset, since I heard her voice over the radio. "Do you need help?" "Yes," I replied. Teresa got out of her truck at this point and started walking towards me. She was about 400 feet behind me. Florence got out of her truck as well and approached the entitled driver's window. "Hey, I saw what you did," Florence said. "That was insanely illegal. You could get 6 different tickets for that. We had plenty of warning. She's standing there for a reason. Don't tell her how to do her job." At this point, the entitled passenger said something to Florence that I couldn't hear, and she didn't want to repeat when I asked her about it later. I just heard her shout, "Oh my God," and start walking back to her truck. The entitled passenger got out and started following Florence and recording her. Oh great. Florence informed her that all of our company trucks had dash cams and not to do anything stupid. At this point, Carol's traffic had already passed me, and Ben came over the radio asking me what was taking me so long to return. Florence replied to him, "There's a lady that tried to run OP's paddle and is still causing problems. Nobody sent any traffic. Vicky, can you get the trooper down here? The vehicle is a blue make and model, license plate number X." Teresa approached the entitled driver and instructed her to pull off onto the side road next to me and park. She was arguing, so Teresa had to repeat herself several times. The driver then tried to go around her and ended up coming straight at me and stopped with her front bumper just a few inches from my knees. I backed up a few feet and she did it again. Now, there are 2 things you need to know about Teresa. First, she used to work in private security. She was trained by local police and military members for that role. She is an intimidating lady and she yells like a drill sergeant. Second is that we are blood related. And seeing a car move towards me in such a threatening way awakened a fury in her that I've never seen before. Like a mother bear defending her cub, she screamed in the driver's face, "Pull onto the side street and frickin' park!" The driver was sufficiently scared into complying, and the state trooper pulled up shortly afterwards. After talking to the driver briefly, the state trooper approached me to hear my description of events. I told him that she pulled around stop traffic in an attempt to get through, and that she was acting aggressively. He replied, "That's what I thought. Okay, I'll take care of it." I thanked him, and Teresa told me to take my break and calm down. From the rearview mirror of the truck, I could see the entitled driver and the state trooper, but I couldn't hear anything. The trooper berated the driver for several minutes, and her face turned visibly red. Soon after, I saw her swiftly leaving, and the trooper was talking to Teresa before he returned to his position. The rest of this story I got secondhand from Teresa. Apparently, the trooper had screamed at the driver for 5 minutes straight, not letting her get a word in edgeways. When he was done, the driver admitted that she wasn't paying attention. She made a mistake and doubled down to try and deflect her own fault onto me. The trooper said he would make a record of it, but he was letting her go without a ticket. I was annoyed. My entire crew was annoyed on my behalf, but we moved on with our day. That's a shame, to be honest. Like, great story, but the lack of ticket there is like a sour end, because as Teresa or Florence, whoever it was, said earlier, this woman could have got 6 separate tickets, and what she did was highly illegal. So for the trooper to just not really be bothered to do any paperwork, because that's what's happened here, and just let her go when she's broken the law in multiple ways and was like threatening to run over somebody, that's just poor. So sadly, not the most satisfying end to this story, but suppose that's real life and that can happen. But there we go. Entitled couple expects discount for being in the military and yells at me when they don't get one. I, a 30-year-old man, have lived in America for 6 years, and now I work at a hotel on the front desk. About a year ago, this couple, maybe in their 60s, came in, and right away, the wife points at her husband and says, "He's military." I said, "Hello," and the husband says, "What? You don't support the military?" I was confused by this comment since I had only said hello to them and didn't say anything about the military, so I don't know what gave him that impression. Anyway, they wanted a room for the night. I let them know the price, and the wife says, "Is that with the military discount?" Just assuming that we had one. I said I'd check if we had one, and we didn't. I was very polite, and I said, "No, sorry, it looks like we don't have one." Oh my god, let me tell you, this couple went complete psycho. The wife was shaking her head and very aggressively saying, "You always give discounts to military people." Then she was saying how she's going to post reviews everywhere and let all their military friends know about how we hate the military. The husband was even worse though. He was literally screaming at me and saying, "I fight for this country." And he actually said, "If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be able to stand there and act like a..." Then he just went on insulting me, calling me a mother effer amongst other things. I was actually recovering from minor surgery at the time, so I didn't really feel like arguing. The only thing I said was, "I just work here." But he didn't respond to that and just kept yelling and swearing at me. I think the wife eventually realized he was getting out of control, and she started to coax him out by saying, "Come on, we're going to go to other hotel." He was slowly walking backwards towards the door while yelling at me, while his wife was trying to get him to come with her. The last thing he said was, "You and all the other effers at this hotel are a bunch of..." Then he just swore a lot more before finally leaving. I'd heard stories about these military types that expected people to worship them because they're in the military, but this was my first time encountering them in person. I was totally shocked that people, adults, actually behave like that. I know that not all military people are like this, but what makes some people act this way? Why do these people think they're special for being in the military? Okay, I think the important thing here is to separate people that have been in the military with people who are just bad people, because there obviously is going to be some crossover there, but I don't think we should look at this and be like, oh, ex-military people or military people are so bad. It's just that these two are examples of bad people who are trying to just force their military service onto you for their own good. Now, don't get me wrong, people that have been in the military deserve discounts and they deserve to be praised and maybe even heralded, in my opinion. It's a very selfless thing to do that not a lot of people would want to do. I mean, I would not want to do that. So, respect.
But also, don't throw it in my face. Like, well done. You made a choice to fight for the country. Like, that was still your choice, right? I mean, if you're a jerk and you join the military, you're still going to be a jerk after you've left the military. I think that's probably the case here. My roommate's girlfriend has started working from our home. I am a 32-year-old woman, and I live with my fiance, a 33-year-old man, and a roommate, who is a 29-year-old man. We live in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house. My fiance and I have the master bedroom with an ensuite bathroom, and my roommate has a bedroom and the other full bathroom. The 3rd bedroom is a guest room / my roommate's office. We moved in about 9 months ago. My partner works 9 to 5 in office. I work from home. My roommate works from home 1 to 2 days a week and is in the field the others. The schedule changes with him working from home more in the winter, and in the summer, he tends to be working away from home more as it's an outside job. He started dating his girlfriend, who is 22, a couple of months before we moved in, and met her through his work. She lives with her family about 45 minutes away. Up until about a month or 2 ago, she would stay over a couple of nights a week, and they often travelled on weekends. I had no problem with this. They would cook maybe 2 nights a week, and they generally stay in his room, even though we've left the living room open to them on occasion. About 3 weeks ago, the girlfriend switched jobs and now works from home. However, this has meant that she has spent nearly every day working from our home in his bedroom. She is pretty quiet and doesn't take up much space. However, I'm getting a little resentful. I agreed to live with the roommate, knowing that he does not work from home. He's complained about the TV I have on in the background. Not the volume, but the actual show, as he hates reality television. It's made me uncomfortable, but I put up with it because he's not here much. With her working here, I feel uncomfortable. She takes meetings throughout the day, and as petty as it sounds, I'm resentful that I have to keep quiet for someone that doesn't even pay rent or utilities. I should mention that he pays less than 1/3 of the rent and only a fixed portion of the electric. My fiance agreed to this without me knowing, but that's another issue. For example, last month's electric was $475 and he only pays $75. That was more reasonable with him gone so much, but it's not fair when she's working here when he's not even home. On top of that, our internet isn't the fastest, and I resent that I'm sharing it with her. On top of this, in the last week, they've been taking both parking spots in the driveway, so we have to park in the grass or mud. I know we need to talk to him, but I wanted input before I do. She is generally quiet and they are respectful. Honestly, it doesn't make a huge difference in my life, but I think I'm annoyed in principle. How would you handle this, or do you have any advice? Okay, first things first, and I'm not sure if you guys did this. I wonder if you had like a little contract in place, you two and your other roommate, before you moved in together, or do you have a general agreement of what is sort of allowed? For example, if your husband or fiance, husband-to-be, has said to the roommate, okay, you can only pay $75 for the electric. Like, is that written down? Like, how have you come to that agreement? Is that a formal agreement, etc.? What I'm trying to get at is, have you written down or formally agreed the roommate gets this use of space, pays this amount of money, etc. We get this space, pay this amount of money. As in, have you agreed to the fact that the roommate is only him who's living in the actual property, right? Because I don't necessarily know how this works, but if you haven't formally agreed to that, then it's probably quite challenging to say to him, well, you're not allowed, your girlfriend's not allowed to work here at all, or be here at all, or she has to be limited in a way. Like, if it's not contractually written down, I think it's kind of challenging. I don't know the exact way this works as well. Like, I think you are renting off, I presume, a landlord. Like, you don't own the property. So again, I don't know in terms of that contract. Like, normally it's a very long contract when you rent a property, and it says you're limited to the number of people that you've agreed to rent there, actually renting there. So if she is working there every single day, then that is going against the rental agreement. Hard to know because I don't know the contract or the situation and who owns the property. But if this is like against the contract that you signed when you started renting out this place, then you definitely have grounds to say, okay, this isn't going to happen. Like, you don't even live here. You can't be doing these things. Now, on a less formal basis, I would probably just have a word with your roommate and say, look, this is not right. Like, you can't take up the entire driveway. She can't be here every single day. She's using utilities and not paying for them. I'm having to be a little bit more conscious of how I'm acting because she's here every single day. That's not really fair. That's not really what we signed up for. And then you should be able to come to some sort of agreement. I'm sort of jumping the gun there, but I feel like if it does get a little bit sticky, then you have to go back to the contract. I mean, ultimately, she's not on the lease, right? And the lease should have maybe something that says visitors can stay X nights a week, or there should be something about visitors on the lease. You got to go and check that and then use that evidence or whatever it says on there to then go to her or the roommate and say, look, you shouldn't really be here at all when the person who's actually renting here isn't here. Let's be realistic, because you're not paying any money to this. You're not on the lease, anything. So here are the facts. But without that contract, without that lease, there's a limit to what you can do. So get the contract. Woman demanded I admit fault in minor car crash she caused. I was just chuckling to myself about this story, so I thought others might enjoy. Based in the UK, left lane drive, which might help this make sense. Okay, so I was driving along in a small country town at about 20 miles an hour one morning, coming towards a left bend where a minor road also joins from the right. As I start to steer into the bend, a car comes shooting out of the minor road and crunches nose first into my driver's side. I look up, a bit baffled, and see a woman in her 70s staring at me over the steering wheel and her crumpled bonnet. My first thought was that she'd had some sort of medical emergency, so I bum-scooted out the passenger door and dashed around to ask if she was okay. Sympathy vanished quickly though, as she got out and came charging towards me, shouting, "Well, that was a stupid thing to do, you silly, stupid gal." I was 45 at the time. "You were driving right into my path and not even looking at me." She then got really personal, calling me a scruffy idler. Despite this, I invited her to come sit at the side of the road for a minute in case she'd had a head injury or was in shock. Maybe her words there were making you think that she'd had a head injury, whereas in reality, that's just her. By now, a small crowd had gathered, and she started inviting them to join her in berating me. How do you do that? You just say like, "Oh, get on this woman. Like, abuse her." Doesn't really make much sense. Anyway, one woman, thank you that woman, said, "I'm sorry, but I saw the whole thing. This lady had right of way and had no reason to expect you to drive into her." I took the witnesses' numbers, took some pictures, and then started enlisting help to push our cars into a nearby car park as traffic was gently building up, in an "I'd like to park outside the coffee shop" sort of way. I think at this point she realised the odds were not in her favour and softened enough to give me her details like it was a huge favour, even though it's actually a legal requirement at the scene of an accident here. She suggested that she would drop the case against me if I paid for her damages without, quote, resorting to her solicitor. I said, let's see how much our repairs cost and we'll figure out the next steps from there. She did not like that and called me a silly gal again. I waited nearby while her recovery arrived and then headed off to my garage. I was only 5 miles from home. On the way home, I thought, we all make mistakes and get angry to cover them. Maybe she's a carer or something and it makes her cranky, but she really needs her car. I settled to wait and see what repairs cost before reporting to insurance. Well, my quote came to over £1,000, so I sent her a text to say that was too much money for me to pay on trust, and I'd be reporting the incident to the insurers along with the photos and witness details. The lady then sent me the sweetest few texts. You'd think I'd just given her a grandchild, thanking me for my help. Would I like to come to a National Trust place for lunch where we could get to know one another better and work out the best course of action for everyone? I blocked her and reported her to my insurance. 2 weeks later, my local garage had my car good as new, and she was probably facing the insurance bill of her life. I think she was probably a retired head teacher or something, and it was fun to see her deploy all her strategies from telling off to schmoozing to try and get me to comply with her version of reality. Absolutely schooled. I mean, if she joined the main carriageway from a side road, going at any speed whatsoever without looking, then she's almost definitely in the wrong anyway. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. And if there are witnesses, she is screwed no matter what. So she was clearly just trying to intimidate you into maybe even thinking that you'd done something wrong when you absolutely hadn't, and then went for the kindness technique afterwards, knowing she was screwed. Yeah, just like a sort of, I don't want to say bully, but like sort of, because like if you're in the wrong and you're just bullying somebody, you know what, she is a bully, because she's trying to intimidate you into you thinking you're wrong or not, you know, going to your insurer or whatever, just manipulating you. So yeah, she is bullying you, and she deserves a hefty bill. Ex-renter acted like he owned my home. So this is from a year ago, but it still makes me angry today. I am a 43-year-old woman, and I met my renter, a 52-year-old man, driving to work one day. He and I were on the same team, and the bus stop was a mile from our building. I decided to be nice and picked him up in the mornings as I came in. We got to know each other, and he told me he'd lost his car and license due to DWIs, and was currently living on a friend's couch after a nasty divorce. He seemed very honest and open. Just a dude down on his luck. Against my better judgment, I offered to rent him a room in my house. I own a 3-bed, 2-bath to myself and 2 dogs, and figured I'd be helping someone out and making some income off my empty space. It started off as small things, him not owning anything and wanting to borrow until he got some income going. This included a bedspread, pillows, towels, a lamp. Okay, no biggie, he said his ex got all his stuff in the divorce. It took him 6 months to buy his own towels. As he got more comfortable, he got more entitled. He used all my cleaning supplies and toilet paper. He took pillows from the sofa, since they were communal items, to use on his bed. He used my kitchen towels to blow his nose and hoarded them in his room. He ate my food, used my spices, ran his TV 24/7. His true colours came out after a few weeks. I lived downtown in a capital city, and he went out every night and got drunk. He'd always forget his key and ring the bell and knock at 1:30, 2 a.m, waking up me and my dogs. He'd then make drunk meals and leave the dishes and food out. I finally started charging him $25 per key-in and told him past 9 p.m. he sleeps on the porch. $200 later, he took me seriously. This behaviour escalated more and more. I'd firmly remind him he was overstepping and he was violating his signed agreement. He'd act remorseful and apologise and promise better. I kept it very professional. I never let him meet friends or hang out with him. He was a tenant, not a friend, and this was my home. It finally came to a head when he banged on my bedroom door at night, demanding I let him in, and saying gross sexual comments. I let him know I was cancelling his lease and he was to leave in the 30 days notice. The next day, he got belligerently drunk, was screaming in my face that I can't kick him out of his house, and he had a right to anything he wanted in his house. I went to my room to find he'd done in and gone through my stuff. I had 2 friends come over and told him to leave. He sat on the floor and refused to move like a child. His friend finally got him to pack a bag and leave. The next day, he came back saying he was going to sue me and sent me a Venmo request for money to compensate his emotional damages. No. He also refused to give me my key back until his friend threatened to leave him on the curb. I filed a police report and let our managers know I no longer felt safe working with him. It's been a year, and I still see glimpses of him. He is smug as ever, but at least not in my home. Oh yeah, I found out he was telling people at work and our local food mart we were married. What the heck? The last line sums up this guy. I cannot possibly imagine why he's divorced. What a weirdo. That's like my worst nightmare, by the way, like living with somebody like that. You do it out of the kindness and the goodness of your own heart, and they throw it back in your face like that. I mean, I live now with my mate who I've known for 25 years, and I'm 27. Now that's knowing someone well, so I think I'm okay there. He's actually appeared on the channel before, so if you know, you know. But yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, do a good deed, earn some money on the side, help someone out that works with you in your company. They've got to be like a decent person, right? And then this like torture. Oh, I can't imagine the anxiety and the stress. Just absolutely awful in your own home. Sorry to you, OP, for getting punished for trying to do something good. Just tough. And now for our final story of today's episode, by the user Everyone Gay, which, first of all, isn't true. Secondly, is an incredible username. Guy tried to steal my stuff right in front of me and acted completely oblivious when confronted about it. 2 days ago, I hosted a one-shot session of D&D at my house, which in hindsight was a genuinely terrible idea because I didn't know any of the people I invited. Wow, that is, again, risky, but fair enough. All my friends were busy and I really wanted to do something this weekend. So I posted in a local D&D group mentioning I was looking for players. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, by the way. I don't 100% get it, by the way. I know it's like some board game, so don't worry if you don't get it as well. 3 people answer, including the waste of oxygen I'm going to refer to as Ben. He's around 18, maybe 17. The rest of us are all in our 20s. Now, Ben seemed like a completely normal person, if only very nerdy about anime and manga. When we all first entered my room, he zoned in on my Berserk volumes, particularly on the latest, which is a version with a variant cover. He mentioned he couldn't find it anywhere, which I find odd because this stuff can always be found online for very cheap. Nothing much happened during the session itself. We all had fun and Ben was actually a pretty decent player. The issues came afterwards. The other two people left together while Ben and I chatted for a few more minutes. He was positioned with his back to my bookshelf and I was sitting right in front of him. That's when I looked to the side and noticed the volume from earlier was missing, and as I instinctively approached the shelf, I noticed a suspiciously shaped lump on his back. What do you know? I lifted his shirt and I found my volume halfway down his pants. I once again want to underline that this man stole a book you can find in any bookstore and online for around €5. I could almost understand if he tried to steal some rare collector's item, but this very much was not one. I immediately pulled it out and was like, dude, what the F? And he just stood there. He just continued talking about whatever discussion we were having moments earlier, completely ignoring the fact that I just caught him red-handed trying to steal from me. At that point, I got mad and bluntly told him to pack his stuff. I watched him shove all his possessions in his backpack and close it, all while he was still talking. Then I went to leave the room. I turned around and he was fiddling with his backpack again. I wizened up, zipped it back open and looked inside. There, I found the Eva from NGE figurine I kept right beside the volumes. Besides that, all the stuff in the backpack was his. At this point, I'm just stunned. He had seriously just taken the half second I was looking elsewhere to try his luck and steal something else. I raised his shirt again to check if he'd taken anything else, but thankfully there was nothing. He was wearing tight jeans, so he couldn't have possibly hidden anything in his pants fully either. And during all of this, he is still yapping. Not once during this entire sequence of events did he appear to acknowledge what was happening, nor did he ever pause in the first place. I don't know if it's some sort of denial or a diversion tactic. I dragged him to the door by arm, and for a second he finally stopped talking. Maybe he wanted to finally talk about what he just did? Perhaps he wanted to apologize? No, he asked me if I was going to host another session next week. That's actually a leap, by the way. That's so good. I shoved him out the door and told him to F off. The genuine gall of this mother effer. I can't tell if he's audacious or just very stupid. How does someone like this exist is beyond me. What a bloke. Like, imagine that. You just nick something from somebody in their own house right in front of them, and you're just like, yeah, great D&D game, man. Like, you played so well. What's this in my pants? Oh, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, same time next week, I'll be there. What does he expect to happen? And then he goes again. And maybe even again. Maybe he got away with it and hope he doesn't even realise. Phenomenal. Again, like, yeah, completely entitled. But you have to rate the audaciousness, aka the audacity. Anyway, guys, we're going to leave it there for this one. Hope you enjoyed those 5 stories. That guy at the end was brilliant. I've got to say, I just really respect it. I know this is r/entitled people, but sometimes you do have to respect the level of entitlement because it is just so beyond belief. And I sometimes wish, in a way, that I could spend a day in a person like that's mind and just be like, wow, I feel like I'm totally invincible in this world, even though I'm clearly not, but I have no idea about that.
How my entitled late aunt lost everything. Buckle up, because this story is an absolute doozy that spans nearly 4 years. Some backstory that's relevant to the story. In December of 2020, my father agreed to put his mother into a nursing home to protect his sister, my aunt, from an elder abuse investigation and getting my grandmother moved into state care. Because of my aunt's negligence, my grandmother had been hospitalized 3 times in 2 months. Once for a severe UTI, another time for an infected wound because my aunt secured my grandmother's diaper with duct tape, and the final time because of second-degree burns after my aunt left a heating pad on my grandmother's back overnight. Ironically, in October 2021, my aunt would end up in a nursing home after she burned herself with a heating pad, then didn't get medical treatment until the burn was badly infected. In January 2022, my grandmother passed away at the age of 94 years old. In my grandparents' will, they split their estate between their 2 children 50-50. However, because neither my father nor aunt was on the deed to my grandparents' house, it was signed over to a probate lawyer who would be tasked with selling it. When my father started going through his mother's affairs in February 2022, he discovered that the state was on the verge of taking the house because the only bills my aunt bothered paying were the electric and cable bills, and she hadn't paid property taxes since December 2020. My father also discovered that there were 2 massive liens on the house, totaling almost $200,000. One from the nursing home my grandmother had been in because my aunt hadn't paid them either. The other because my aunt convinced my grandmother to take home equity loan out on the house so that she could buy a car. Initially, she was only supposed to take what she needed for the car, roughly $6,000. However, my aunt went behind my grandmother's back and would end up taking the full $100,000 the bank offered them. My aunt had been able to co-sign for the loan, so she was authorized to take the full amount. She also never made any of the monthly payments on that loan because she legitimately thought loans were money banks, just giving people free, no strings attached cash. My aunt never told anyone what she did with the remaining $94,000, but the rest of the family suspects that she gambled it away at local casinos. My aunt was also given full access to my grandmother's bank account, which she'd almost completely drained before my grandmother passed, meaning my father had to pay any outstanding bills from his own pocket, though he was eventually reimbursed by the lawyer. Goodness me, just 2 paragraphs in and already, what a woman your aunt is. Some point between late January 2022 and March 2022, in an attempt to buy herself some time to recover enough to leave the nursing home and thinking that the house couldn't be sold if somebody was living in it, my aunt convinced one of her friends to move into my grandmother's vacant house, unbeknownst to my father and the lawyer. As you can imagine, things got messy when my father found out. Initially, my aunt told my father that the man was there to take care of her 2 cats. However, even after my aunt was court-ordered to sign her 2 cats over to my father due to neglect and abuse, the man refused to leave. Both cats have been treated and rehomed and are doing well. Well, that is good to hear. We eventually found out that man had broken his lease, moved out of his apartment, and had nowhere else to go except his and my aunt's daughter's house, and who adamantly refused to let her father move in with her. Around April, my parents started to deep clean the disgustingly dirty house with the man still living there, and he did everything in his power to obstruct my parents' efforts. He'd call up claiming he was sick with COVID, which my parents almost always called his bluff on since he was physically disabled and never left the house, nor had anyone but my parents visit. One day, he told my mother, well, Sharon, who is my entitled aunt, said we'd be able to live here forever, and that my father didn't have the balls to kick me out. Well, my mum told my father what had been said, and the very next day, my father gave the man an ultimatum. My father told him, either you leave on your own by May 1st, or I'll have you evicted. The man chose the eviction route because my aunt told him they can't legally evict a disabled person, and he believed her. He ended up having to move in with his daughter, who is no longer speaking to my aunt because my aunt has ruined that woman's livelihood on multiple occasions. But that's a whole other story. However, before he left the house, per my aunt's orders, he stole several valuable pieces of jewelry, including a box of rings that had been willed to her cousins. We were able to get the stolen jewelry back in late 2023 after the probate lawyer had to send police to retrieve it, which is another doozy of a story. I feel like despite the fact that this story is fantastic, there's so much more to uncover in this story. Like there's so many different intricacies and events that I would love to delve into at a later point. But for now, goodness me. Because of the whole squatter incident, we missed a massive housing boom where houses were selling for significantly more than what they were worth. And the house was put on the market during a slump and ended up selling for almost $150,000 less than what it was worth. And it led to another lengthy legal battle with my aunt because she refused to sell or throw out any of her furniture in an attempt to buy enough time to leave the nursing home until she was court ordered to do so. Given what the house sold for and deducting the lien from the home equity loan, the lien the nursing home put on the house had actually been dismissed by a judge, the end figure that my father ended up with was just under $60,000, while my aunt ended up with just under $50,000. My aunt got less because the probate lawyer charged her more than he charged my father because she was the one who had drawn things out for so long. Around that time, my aunt had been deemed unfit to make decisions for herself by a judge and several of her doctors, and ended up signing her half of the inheritance to my father to avoid losing it to the nursing home that she was in. My aunt passed away on August 1st at the age of 68 from multi-organ failure caused by years of heavy smoking, ignoring her diabetes, and refusing to consent to a surgery that would have likely saved her life. We didn't have a funeral for her. We simply had her cremated, and her ashes, along with pictures and other personal belongings, were given to our older daughter. My aunt's younger daughter tried to sue my father for the rest of her mother's inheritance, but the suit was quickly dropped since the money my aunt had inherited after her mother's death had already been signed over to my dad. So my aunt's daughter had no right to it. Our one saving grace in this whole fiasco was that my aunt was in a nursing home for the entire process. Otherwise, it would have been significantly messier. There's a lot I didn't go into for the sake of not typing out an almost literal novel, but I'll gladly elaborate on anything I can. Thanks for reading. Okay, goodness me, what a story. I can't quite believe that someone like that exists in your life, OP. But all I can really say is fair play to your dad for actually sticking with this and going through it, using so much of his own money and eventually ending up with really not that much for all his trials and tribulations. Although I am slightly surprised that there was any inheritance left after all of this. But wow, I mean, earlier this year, my granddad died, my dad's dad. And my dad and his brother, my uncle, have been working pretty hard to make sure that, you know, all the money goes to my granny correctly and goes through probate, etc., etc. And yeah, like going through different bank accounts and seeing what's owed and yeah, making sure everything's all right. I've never had any experience of that myself, but while reading this story, all I could think was, if one of them was against the other one and like was trying to put money into different places or was trying to take money, my granny's still around, so like the money was always going to go to her. But I mean, like, say she wasn't and the two of them were against each other, how would you ever come to some sort of conclusion or agreement? I mean, like, imagine if this woman was involved, this horrible aunt of yours, OP. I can't imagine that the stress and the workload that would have to go on top of what already seemed to be, from my perspective anyway, a lot of work. But yeah, I guess this is not a one-off thing. People argue over inheritance all the time. Maybe not to this extent though. And also I would say, actually, can you consider writing that novel, OP? Thank you for submitting it. Great story. But as I said halfway through that, I feel like there's so much more to unpack here, so many more events. I would read a short story based on your life and in particular, your aunt's. All right, now moving on to our next story submitted by one of you guys. Just let the kids sort it out themselves. Okay then, backstory. I live in a town in the Netherlands with a university, and a few years ago, my girlfriend's cousin got accepted as an overseas student. My girlfriend is Japanese. Her family, father, mother, her sister, and herself, moved to the Netherlands while she was younger. Her cousin still lived in Japan when she applied, got accepted, and is now living in a student room in the Netherlands. We don't really have dorms here, like in the US, but the building she lives in is maintained by the university itself. Said cousin is doing quite well for herself, got good grades, and is well on her way to get her diploma. Partly because of this, the overseas family decided to have their vacation in the Netherlands this year, both for leisure and a bit of a family gathering. This story takes place during that family gathering. My girlfriend's parents and the cousin's parents, plus yet another family, had a meeting in a restaurant in my hometown. They had 2 little kids in tow, sisters. They looked like 8 or 9 or so to me, but my girlfriend later told me they're actually 11 and 12, but did look younger than they were, probably also because of their school uniform. At least that's what it looked like to me. I really don't know. Anyway, the idea was to catch up with the family, and my girlfriend was asked if she would be willing to keep the 2 young kids busy for a few hours since she was the oldest of the lot. My girlfriend and me are in our 40s. Her studying cousin is around 25, and as said, the 2 kids are 11 and 12. Now my girlfriend didn't mind, but did ask me if I wanted to come along as well. Her cousin didn't mind. The 3 of us had met a few times before already, and well, it was all about keeping the young kids busy anyway. Oh, for the record, the 2 young kids basically only speak Japanese. They do understand bits of English and can even speak some, but it's mostly Japanese. My girlfriend's cousin speaks both Japanese and English and has even learned quite a bit of the Dutch language as well. Seriously, for the few years she's been here, it's in my opinion quite impressive. My girlfriend speaks Japanese, English, and Dutch, and as for me, Dutch, obviously, and English. But over the years, I've also managed to pick up a decent bit of Japanese as well, and I can often, not always, understand the general gist of things, as long as it's not too quickly spoken or too complicated. So basically, it was all English and Japanese between us. Right then, let's get into the story now. A bully shows up. We took the kids for a walk through my hometown, and they were quite interested. But when we went past a playground, that also quickly got their attention. So the three of us decided to go and sit on a bench and let the kids have some fun. There were several activities, like an air balloon castle, swings, a sandbox for younger kids to play in, just plenty of things to do. The two wanted to go into the castle, which was fine with my girlfriend, as long as they made sure to only use the entrance and exit, which was located on our side, so they wouldn't get lost and we could keep track of them. The three of us talked quite a bit, but also kept eyes on the castle. So, around 15 or so minutes later, I spot the two again by accident near the exit with a little kid in between them. I have no idea, but I'd say she was around 8 or so. I can't really tell exactly what's going on, but I did see the kid point to the area of the sandbox, and that's where the three of them headed next. Before I can say anything to my girlfriend, a young lady walks up to us and asks, in Dutch, if we have seen a little girl passing by. This seems way too coincidental to me, so I ask, is she wearing a pink dress by any chance? The woman's face lights up as I tell her that she seems to be with my girlfriend's younger cousins, and I point to the sandbox. But when we look over, we now also see an older boy near the girls. I'm not good with guessing ages. Let's just say that he was bigger than them, and he's clearly harassing them. The small girl is visibly crying, but is also comforted by one of the two younger cousins, while the other is keeping the boy away from her. We all walk over to the sandbox just when the boy manages to shove one of the cousins out of his way, and he's clearly trying to bully the young girl in the pink dress, but is now stopped by the other cousin, which is when we arrive. The woman who is with us berates the boy and tells him to stop picking on young children, but the little brat clearly isn't very impressed. The incident. The next moment, his mother, so I assume, storms over yelling, and she has every appearance of a Karen. Or a Toki, as we tend to call them over here. A little argument ensues, mainly between the mother of the girl in the pink dress and our Karen, or Toki. It goes back and forth, but it's apparent that according to his mother, the brat did nothing wrong by picking on a girl half his own size, and this fine example of a mother even has the audacity to blame the other mother for raising such a weak little C-word. Basically, and then if you are Dutch, have a look on screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. That's what was said. And then the Karen says, kids will be kids, just let them sort out their own problems already. But she does take the boy with her as she walks away. The mother gets ready to grab her kid and leave, but in the meantime, the girl has completely calmed down and is actually having a great time with the two cousins. Unknown to anyone else yet at this time, my girlfriend decides to comply with the earlier suggestion. First, she asks the mother to reconsider leaving because the kids are having so much fun together. My girlfriend also comments how amazing kids are because they clearly don't speak the same language, yet they seem to understand each other just fine and are having a good time. The mother agrees, and my girlfriend now addresses both her cousins in Japanese, and it sounded very serious to me. Something about the tone, the way she talked, and also looked at both girls, even a bit sternly. They both nodded and clearly said, "Hi," aka "Yes, mom," apologies for the pronunciation there. I think I even saw a small head bow, but I'm not too sure. Our little group goes to sit on a bench nearby, and for the next 5 minutes, nothing happens. We're just having some small talk. Then, the bully returns. The mother of the small girl wanted to stand up, but gets stopped by my girlfriend, who tells her that she has nothing to worry about because her kid is completely safe. Just watch. Trust me on this. The mother is visibly uneasy, but does remain seated. Which is when I noticed that the behaviour and stance of the two cousins has completely changed. They seem much more confident and relaxed. The boy starts making a fuss, while one of the cousins stands up, points to him, and yells something at him, in Japanese, obviously. He once again tries to shove her out of his way, but this time she's faster. She steps aside, does something with her leg, and gives him a huge shove. Next moment, he's eating sand. No, literally. He gets up visibly angry with his face covered in sand. This time though, he becomes violent and actually tries to hit one of the cousins with his fists. Yeah, tries. She evades one attempt, then grabs his hand, spins it around, and the next moment the boy finds his arm twisted behind his back and he starts screaming. The other cousin now also stands up, pats the young girl on her head, makes another move, and once again the boy gets shoved to the ground, this time by both cousins. Hard. When he looks up, the other cousin actually makes a moving gesture as if she wants to kick him, but without actually moving her legs or anything. She's obviously just threatening him. My girlfriend pokes me with a huge grin on her face and tells me, surely that deserves a point for self-restraint. Don't you agree? She's visibly loving every moment of this. Apparently the boy isn't totally stupid and he runs off, while one cousin immediately turns to the young girl again, who is clearly still having a good time. Not the least upset with the bully. What was that in God's name? The mother asks. Oh, sorry. What the heck was that? She asks. My girlfriend tells the mother that her cousins are taking the same self-defense classes as she and her sister once did, and that she had decided to pull rank by telling her cousins that it was okay for them to actually defend themselves, as long as they didn't overdo it, of course. The mother wanted to know more about these classes, but unfortunately for her, my girlfriend had to tell her the actual school was located all the way out in a suburb of Tokyo, so not something her daughter would be able to attend. Mummy returns with a BOA, a guard. We're chatting some more for the next 10 minutes, after which the bully's mother storms over to us with a BOA in tow. BOA is Dutch for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, which basically means so much as being a deputy, but without the proper training nor having any weapons. Generally speaking, most of them usually handle ticketing people. He tells us that he has gotten a complaint from the woman about people beating up her kid, to which the mother of the young girl immediately snaps, whatever happened with letting the kids sort out their own problems? Now, the funny thing is, apparently the whole spectacle didn't really go unnoticed, and before we could say or do anything, someone else had stormed over as well. I saw the whole thing, officer, an older woman said. Her brat, she said, pointing at the Karen, was harassing and beating the kid in the pink dress when these two awesome kids stepped in and protected her. Meanwhile, another man had walked over. Officer, that brat got everything he deserved. He started it. The only thing that happened was that those girls defended themselves from him. The officer listened to everyone's statements and ended up deciding to ticket the mother of the brat. I assume for disturbing the peace, but I don't know any details because at this time we decided to leave and went our separate ways. Aftermath. During our walk back to the hotel/restaurant, the cousins told us the whole story. And I actually learned something new as well. While they were in the castle, they saw the boy harassing the young girl in the pink dress and immediately decided that this wasn't right, also because he was almost twice her size. He actually pulled on her hair while she was already crying, which made the cousins plain angry. But the only thing they did was get the boy away from the girl. One cousin distracted the boy by blocking him from grabbing the girl's hair again, and she also started taunting him while the other comforted the young girl and led her to the exit, but the one we agreed on. So the girl's mother never saw her leave and got worried. The other cousin managed to lose the boy in the crowd, at first anyway, and she joined her sister near the exit. So I asked my girlfriend why they didn't do all that stuff right away, to which she told me that they weren't allowed to. The first rule of self-defense is apparently always leave if you can. And her cousins are at a level where the use of these techniques outside their school is strictly prohibited, unless there's an actual threat, of course. Or if they've been given direct permission by an elder of the same school. A rule which my girlfriend was stretching a little bit, but she told me that she would write up the whole altercation so that the cousins could take her letter back with them. She was actually not kidding when she talked about points for self-restraint, because that would actually be her advice in the letter. But yeah, typical hypocrite behaviour. Let the kids sort it out until it suddenly doesn't go your way, eh? Yeah, let the kids sort it out is something you can pretty easily say when your kid is twice the size of the other kid that is in this altercation and is the one bullying them. Like, it's just ridiculous. But if you say that sort of thing, yeah, surely you have to just sit back and watch your kid just get destroyed by some good old martial arts self-defense. Like, if you say it, you got to stick by it and ultimately applaud the kids. You know what? Reading this, it actually does make me think. Like, every kid, I think, should, if possible, go through some form of self-defense. I mean, this is just so cool. The fact that these two kids were like not really even that worried about this guy at all. They were trying to keep the peace, but they knew in the back of their minds, if they had to use any form of self-defense, they were fine with it, and they would be able to do what they had to do to make sure that the other girl didn't get physically harmed. It's a pretty cool position to be in. Like, seeing how calm and collected they were when they were told they were allowed to use self-defense, and just knowing their ability, pretty elite. And they were just having a good time until they had to step in again, and then actually at that point get a little bit physical. But they weren't harming the kid, were they? They were just saying, no, back off, putting them in his place, yeah, with a little bit of physicality. But it's not as if they were like scrapping him, punching him. They just made him eat a little bit of sand. Who doesn't love that?